Someone let me know as soon as the guest comes on. I need to make sure that we immediately tell them that we're live to the world.
Yes. Okay.
Hello, Internet. You get a special extra treat today.
The other thing I want you to do is hit 4.
Today.
Unmutes everybody.
Gotcha.
That opens up Casper to control.
We gonna be talking about
So that way we don't have
nonsense.
to do that.
Correct.
But if I do want everyone to be quiet, I could just push the button very quiet. You know,
You can smash 4.
So,
Dance Dance Revolution.
Or you can.
nice.
Okay, ready?
As ready as I'll ever be.
All right. Your rundown's already set up. You've already got your rundown stuff there. You've got visual.
Hold
stuff.
1 second. Hey, Jeffrey.
Okay. Hello.
How's it going? Before you say anything else, I want you to know that we are live to the world, so everyone can see us. So everything you say from this moment forward is on the public record.
Hi, world.
Normally we have a little bit more time in advance where we'd bring you on before everyone else and blah, 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 but I wanted to get that out of the way.
Yeah, that's fine.
We're actually doing a little bit of training today, so if you don't mind, we're just going to do a few quick... we're going to do an audio check with you really quick. So if we could, what'd you have for breakfast today?
I had coffee.
Slacker. Really expand on that coffee experience for us.
I honestly, I had coffee at 30,000 feet. I literally flew in from Florida this morning. I got in about an hour ago, got to the studio, and was setting up for you guys. So
Awesome. Actually, I'm heading to Florida tomorrow, so we almost crossed
nice.
each other in the sky. Not quite. Who do you need next, Jared?
ships passing in the sky.
That's me. Sure. Am I actually on? I don't hear myself. I am on? Fantastic. Because that is like...
1, 2. All right. I generally talk all across the board. Then sometimes I get really excited and I talk about right like that. Generally, I don't.
Space Mike.
Uh-oh. So we're going to be talking about some rocket launches, and it's going to be really cool. And then we got to talk about some policy stuff that is really crazy. We got to talk about this stuff because, oh my gosh, Congress is going to be losing their minds.
You, Sarah?
All right. Okay. So I really talk like this until I forget what I'm saying, and then I look down and I kind of do this. Okay. And then
No. Like, it's not that, it's this.
Okay.
I know. Now I can hear myself, so that's fantastic.
Do you have a tech issue out there?
Good.
Me, yes. A number of them.
What's the issue?
Things I can't explain, so it really doesn't matter.
It matters a lot because if you can't hear, then
No, that's not the issue. Jeffrey, it's the amazing Jeff? What? Remind me.
The incredible Jeff. Am I the
Incredible.
issue?
two Incredibles.
Uh-oh.
It's a really nice shirt. And I apologize. So what happened was I ordered a Death Wish shirt to make sure that I had it for the show. And I got it last week. And I was just so excited about having the shirt all together. I did not double check and or realize that somehow either I ordered the wrong size or I was misshipped the wrong size. It was a double extra large and I wear a medium. And I so desperately tried to do, I was like, oh, maybe I'll just do like a quick tie on the side or something. And that was a straight no-go. So I am wearing a coffee related shirt. It's not a space coffee related shirt. And I typically work with espresso, and I know Death Wish doesn't make espresso, but I have my Llama
yet.
Zoko shirt. Yeah,
Oh, not yet.
Please start doing that. That would be fantastic. That is something I would definitely be very much so interested in.
I will definitely make sure you get the right size shirt. I'll make sure you all get shirts over there.
I mean, first of all, thank you. Secondly, you don't need to do that. I'm sure I can find
Customer service is #1 over here. We'll make everything right, I promise.
It was just more sad to me than anything. I was like, on the verge of tears of like, no, I went through all of this effort. Like, I got the shirt and I was going to wear the shirt and I was so excited about the shirt and now I can't do anything with the shirt. Yeah, really. Yeah, well, that's all. That's fine. Whatchamacallit. So, want to make sure that
YouTube.
You have a decent understanding. I know Ben sent the email about the flow of the show itself. We've since changed it ever so slightly since he formatted the email to start, because that's kind of one of those things of like, we send this to everybody. What's going to happen is that they're going to do a couple rehearsals for their open because they just need to practice, and then
yeah, we're going to be a little late.
In the open itself, they're going to toss to you/me kind of thing, talking about how I have this interview with you. And so if you could kindly maybe not be picking your nose or swearing at that time, that would be fantastic.
Or do both. That'd be hilarious.
Yeah.
That is definitely an option. And then at that point, once we kind of get through that part of it, then you're definitely free. You can hang out, watch the news things. You're kind of in it to a certain extent, besides being in it a little bit later on. And then we'll go to a break, and then it'll be you and me, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
Cool. Benjamin?
Yeah, camera color? Yes. Are they not looking correct? Show me in program preview.
Hello.
Milan-esque. Melon-esque. Yes.
I'm not going to be able to change.
Hello, YouTube. Hello,
there's a slight-
Astro-esque.
When you zoom out, your color balance shifts a little bit. There's a little bit more green there than there is there, and I'm not going to be able to make that shift close enough to this close to the show. We ready to run a? Are you having issues still, or are you doing all right?
I don't know where I am, and I don't know what I'm doing. So I have these, and I have these two, but I don't know how to get to where you want them to be. Does that make sense?
Right. So where are these located?
These are right here now.
All three are these images.
Those
right?
three are, but these two are not. And I don't know how to do this to that or wherever it is you want them
These
to
in
be.
your downloads folder. Right. So
Mascot.
here,
Silly.
what you want to do?
This is great. You're so blonde. You actually look blue in here.
What you want to do is drag those into there.
Sure. What do I do about the other two?
You have to find them. They're in your downloads folder, it looks like.
I'm sorry, kids.
Sorry.
I like how you say downloads folder, and that is just not something that looks like a thing to me.
So if you open your,
Sure. And
and then you go to,
And to
There we
come
go.
back, do I get F2 as well? Yeah, well,
So guys,
If you hit
we're
that,
going to have some late additions for the topic. They're going to be
Yeah,
images.
no.
We're going to
So,
run the
if
open
you
once she has this because we're going to
scroll,
need
you
time
can
for it to
find out
flush
where
through
you-
for automation. We'll run the open and then we'll have reload.
Yeah,
let
see
you
what I'm
double
saying?
check
Like-
really
there
quick.
we go.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
Everyone, we're going to start about 5 minutes late today. It looks like. If we do the rehearsal, if we do the cold open and it's good, we're just going to flow into the show. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm gonna be talking to
Maybe.
Oh, well, then we're not going to do that.
Maybe,
then.
maybe.
That's fine. Okay. Nope, we're not. We're not. Dot is going to be talking to give instruction. Everyone, we have got
Well,
guest
no,
technical director Jared Head on the
I
show
think
today.
that
This will be his
30 and 60
first
seconds,
show.
that should be in
Exactly.
Rundown Creator.
So we're going to be taking
They
a
should
little
have
bit of
access
extra
to it
time
already.
to allow him to do some of the more complex parts of the show, such as the live cold open and whatnot, which is the reason we're starting late. It's also the reason that we're live now, so you can watch us completely, totally, and miserably fail over and over and over again.
And you thought we were professionals.
I fooled you.
Okay, so this is done.
Yes, so they've loaded to your drive.
So I can
You
close
close
that.
Yep. So now, what will happen is go to Rundown Creator. Double click on the interview section.
Like,
Yep. It opens up the script.
cool.
So then, scroll to like the bottom or something. Or that works too. When it says Insert A.
Go to the next piece of media and there is
So now, in this graphics section, in like 2 minutes, under 1126 topic, down. Oh, actually, it looks like some of them are starting to show up. So like astronaut.
We have the active background.
See
Yeah,
right
well, I
here.
just wanted to make
Topic.
sure.
Topic.
So as soon as you run that
Yes.
active background.
Yep, you're going to click on that. It'll automatically add all the code necessary. So go ahead and click on it.
Run the next thing. It's still running.
So there, it added everything you needed in there to add that object into our automation system. So hit return, add the next one. I think you have 5 in there though, or do you have?
6.
You have 6. Okay, so what's happening is it's still uploading to the system.
That's clear.
So the other ones just haven't shown up in Rundown Creator yet.
The comments on purpose.
Be sure to put them in the order that you
I
would
have
like them
no
to
idea
be.
what order I want them in. I was thinking about that, but that's just
actually,
not going to be a thing.
Mike, for topic, order doesn't matter as much because topics are main topics are fluid. So we try to just put a bunch of objects in there and then let the technical director be like, oh, we're talking about this. That looks about right.
This one.
Yeah, but for news, you're absolutely correct. The order is very important. But for things that are, well, that's half true because I don't script my news. So I just go, here's generally how I think it's going to go.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll get you an image, maybe you won't.
Hey, Jeff. Wait. Jeff, that's totally how your show goes too, right?
What's that?
All of the things that we're saying, that's exactly the way that you run your show. Is that correct?
Of course, I script it out, and then my co-host comes in and he goes, "Yeah, screw your script," and we kind of just we wing it from there. It's usually a good thing.
Yeah,
Seems
that
legit.
sounds
I
about
actually
right.
I hate scripts because they're not natural conversations, and so I just don't do it. I understand there's a need for it sometimes, but I'm like, no. Let's just talk about this. Have a casual conversation about space.
Yeah.
All right. On that note, let's run this cold open a couple of times so that Jared gets an idea as to how this all goes. You
I
ready,
have
Jared?
one more question before we start.
Sure.
Does anyone know what chat room we're supposed to be in?
I'm in beta, and it seems to be working right now.
Cool. All right. Thank
stay
you.
in beta for
Earlier,
now,
but
yeah.
it seems to be stable. It's got the YouTubes. It's got the Twitch.
Sure. Cool. Let's do the cold open.
Okay.
So,
Disclaimer.
yeah.
And welcome to Tomorrow. My name is Ben Credible. I am joined by a Space Mike and a Sarah. And I've got Carrie Ann out on the observation lounge. Now, today in news, we have Mike.
We got spacewalks and Falcons and Space Force. Oh my.
And Sarah.
Hayabusa 2.
And we also have an amazing, I'm doing this super slow for Jared, we have an amazing interview out on the observation deck with Carrie Ann.
That's right. I've got Death Wish Coffee with the incredible Jeff. We're going to be talking about the entire process, all about it, and more coming up on this episode of Tomorrow. Ha! I threw you.
Dude, you did. You are not Capcom this one.
I know,
you
but
are
I'm
not
so used to
Capcom.
it.
I am Capcom. All that and more. Stay tuned. Tomorrow begins. Hit the button.
Right now.
Good morning. How's everything up in the sky?
All right, here's the thing, Jared. I did that at like 1/3 speed. So we're going to do that again, and I'm going to do it slow again for you, but I'm going to speed it up a little bit. Ready?
You can hear everything.
Ben, just so you know, you did throw Jared off too by throwing to me first before Sarah.
Oh, is Sarah first in the rundown?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry, Jared. That was my fault. I'll throw to Sarah first.
Back to that lower third.
Sarah first.
I'll do Sarah first. That's my bad. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's always me first.
So,
Always you first.
Yes.
I don't know why.
Ladies first. Ladies first.
Seriously. First cereal.
Okay. So whenever you're
Sorry, Jeffrey. I hope this is all right.
you ready to run again?
Yeah, let's do this thing.
okay. Honestly, I might have to do
Alright.
like once.
I understand. Yeah, we're going to do it slow for you again, Jared. Don't worry.
Got you.
Okay.
Yep. You're fine.
Got you.
And welcome to Tomorrow, Orbit 11.26. My name is Ben Credible. I'm joined by a Sarah and a Space Mike. A little bit later on, we're going to have a Carrie Ann. Now, first up in space news, Sarah, what have you got?
Hayabusa 2.
And Space Mike.
Awesome. We got spacewalks and Falcons and Space Force. Oh my.
That is a lot of stuff going on there, Space Mike. And of course, we're going to have a highly caffeinated interview with Carrie Ann out on the observation deck.
Of course we are. I am Carrie Ann, and I will be interviewing the incredible Jeff from Death Wish Coffee. We're going to learn about how they got their coffee from being the strongest coffee in the world to the strongest coffee off-world.
That's going to be a lot of fun. All that and a whole lot more coming up. Stay tuned. Tomorrow begins.
Good morning. How's everything up in the sky?
That right now, and it'll be perfect.
Yeah.
Right now. That's the one. That's the one. I'd also like to thank all of our escape velocity citizens. All right, one more time, and then it's for real. Is that all right, everyone? I'm going to do this.
Let me see how I feel after that.
All right, we're going to do this at real speed this time, though.
Dun dun dun.
Okay.
You don't need anything from chat.
Everyone. Welcome to Tomorrow, Orbit 11.26. My name is Ben Credible. Today I'm joined by a Sarah, a Space Mike, and we've got a Carrie Ann out on the observation deck. Now, in space news, Sarah, what have you got?
I've got Hayabusa too.
We've also got some stuff from Space Mike. What have you got?
Spacewalks and Falcons and Space Force. Oh my.
Oh my, indeed. And on the observation lounge, we've got a highly caffeinated Carrie Ann.
Wow, that's going to make a great three-letter acronym a little bit later on. I'm Carrie Ann. I normally Capcom, but I will be interviewing I can't talk, so it's a good thing we're not doing this for real. The incredible Jeff, talking about how we got. I can't talk either. Nope, this is totally wrong all the way around. It's all you now. Go.
All that and a whole lot more coming up. Stay tuned. Tomorrow begins.
At this moment in time.
Good morning. How's everything up in the sky?
That's it, right then. All right, cool. Right. All right, ready for real? Let's try it. If it doesn't work, we'll stop. If it does, we'll continue into the show. How about that, Jared?
Okay, sounds fine.
All right, cool.
For realsies.
The lower third. Okay, cool. All right.
All right, let's do this thing. This is for real.
Are we recording?
We are recording.
Okay.
Haha, good question.
All right.
And welcome to Tomorrow, Orbit 11.26. I'm Ben Credible, joined by a Sarah, a Space Mike, and we've got Carrie Ann out on the observation deck. Now, space news. Sarah, what have you got?
I've got Hayabusa too.
Hayabusa! Space Mike!
We got spacewalks and Falcons and Space Force. Oh my.
It's going to be exciting. And on the observation deck, Carrie Ann, what have you got coming up?
Well, I'm going to be interviewing the incredible Jeff from Death Wish Coffee, talking about how they went from being the strongest coffee in the world to the strongest coffee off-world.
All that and a whole lot more. Stay tuned. Tomorrow begins right now.
Good morning. How's everything up in the sky?
Now, before we start with space news, I want to give a huge thank you to everyone who makes these shows possible. These are Escape Velocity citizens. These are people who've contributed $10 or more to this specific episode. You get a whole bunch of rewards, and you are the lifeblood of the show. These are the people who help make this go week after week. To find out how you can help crowdfund the shows of tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. And as always, we like to start off with some launches, and we had a couple this week. So, Space Mike, what was up first?
Well, first off, we had two kind of secret Chinese spacecraft that are testing some inter-satellite communications and Earth observations, which launched on a Long March 2C rocket on Wednesday of this week. As I said, this launch occurred on Wednesday, June 27th at 3:30 Coordinated Universal Time from the Xicheng Space Center in southwestern China's Sichuan province. The two-stage launcher delivered the satellites into their intended orbit, according to Chinese officials. U.S. military tracking data said that they were in an orbit around 485 kilometers and tilted about 35 degrees to the equator. Now, Chinese state media released little information about the satellites. Their names were not officially announced, and they only said that the twin spacecraft would conduct tests of inter-satellite networking links and Earth observation. But in any case, this was the 18th successful orbital launch for China so far this year, and the race is going strong.
Yeah, that's a lot of launches. We're only halfway through the year.
Yeah.
Right.
Officially, we just hit the summer solstice over this past week, right?
Yes, we did. Yeah. All right, what else you got?
We also had a SpaceX launch, a Falcon 9 launch, launching the next Dragon cargo capsule filled with supplies and experiments bound for the International Space Station.
And coffee,
that just launched early yesterday. Yes, and really, really strong coffee,
6,
too.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition, liftoff.
This launch occurred on Friday, June 29th at 9:42 Coordinated Universal Time from Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral, Florida. And this was the last launch of a Block 4 Falcon 9, and so they did not attempt to do any sort of landing or recovery of the first stage booster. But this particular booster has flown before, launching NASA's TESS spacecraft back in April of this year, which actually makes this the fastest turnaround time yet for the launch of a recovered booster at 2.5 months of refurbishment. But the Dragon capsule itself is a previously flown capsule, which first launched on the CRS-9 mission in July of 2016. This one is the CRS-15 mission. And for this mission, it's packed with a robot assistant for the International Space Station crew, pouches of extra strong coffee, as we said. And altogether, it's carrying 2,697 kilograms of equipment and supplies for the crew, as well as lots of experiments. Now, some of the equipment that's launched to the space station inside the Dragon's trunk include a spare Canadian-built latching end effector, or hand, for the lab's robotic arm. And plus, there's an instrument developed by NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory that's going to be mounted on the outside of the Kibo space station, or rather the Kibo module, which is going to be measuring temperatures of plants from space. And this experiment is called the Ecosystem Spaceborne Thermal Radiometer Experiment on Space Station, or EcoStress. Whew, that's a backronym for sure. But, and I love that footage. That's probably my favorite. I do too. I was just going to stop you.
Look at how amazing that is. That's just incredible.
Yeah, I love that shot. But there was also an experiment aboard the Dragon capsule, which we've talked about, which is going to be an artificial intelligent robot assistant, which is going to be helping out European Space Agency astronaut Alexander Gerst, who's already at the space station right now. And with this, it's known as Simon, short for Crew Interactive Mobile Companion, and it's going to help complete tasks, conduct experiments, and help repair and upgrade components inside the space station. And I think that that's a really cool experiment. But in any case, the Dragon capsule is going to stay at the space station until August 2nd after it rendezvous. And I believe it's a 3-day rendezvous, so I believe it's going to be rendezvousing with the space station tomorrow on Sunday or early Monday. I'm not sure exactly. But in any case, it's going to stay until August 2nd after its birth to the space station, and it'll return a bunch of supplies to Earth at that time. However, I do want to say that this was the 12th launch so far for SpaceX, and it just so happens to be the 9th flight of a flight-proven booster, which means that they've flown more flight-proven used boosters than they have brand new ones, which I think is just a really cool fact. But this was also the 18th orbital launch this year for the United States, keeping the tie between China and the United States right there. So, whew.
18th for the United States. And actually, so I got a couple comments from the chat room based on some of this stuff. The first one is from Jazz Throat on that same number. If we look at the worldwide average, he says, if my count is right, we're on a 9 successful orbital launches per month average. So every month this year, if the count is correct, worldwide, that would be 9 launches. How incredible is that?
On average, yeah.
On average, yeah. Well, it ebbs
more.
and flows, yeah. Yeah, I mean, so, like, I think in this calendar break, there are no launches slated for this next week. So, you know, there you go. Now, you had also mentioned that...
Summer's always slow, though. Summer's always slow for launches.
You mentioned that was the last Block 4, but Vogon asks in the chat room, thought they were using a Block 4 for the crew abort demo.
I mean, I don't know if they are or not. I don't know what's going on with the crew abort demo, but in the live webcast itself, I mean, Mike said that this was the last Block 4 launch, so I'm just going off of what SpaceX said.
And the last comment from Neuropilot is, CRS gave a pretty good show with the backlit early morning sun. You know, that Dragon separation, oh man. That was just like, you could, like the sun with Dragon right there and the Earth in the background just like moving away slowly. Oh, how incredible was that?
I am a sucker for lens flare.
That was a real lens flare, though.
Absolutely. No J.J. Abrams sitting off screen.
Not added in post. Not added in post. Yeah, with little flashlights off. Dragon had a flashlight off to the side trying to... All right. Thank you so much, Space Mike. Really great information. All right, let's head it over to you. Hayabusa!
Okay. All right. So this week on June 27th, Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, or JAXA, their Hayabusa 2 achieved another mission milestone. They are in orbit around its target asteroid, Ryugu. All right, so Hayabusa 2 is a sample return mission to and from an asteroid, and it's in orbit 20 kilometers above the surface. And for the moment, all is well in JAXA land. Okay.
JAXA land.
JAXA land.
I want to go to JAXA land.
Right? It sounds super fun. Okay. So the craft is everybody's favorite word, nominal. But Ryugu did have a surprise for the Hayabusa team. So the shape of the asteroid is a bit more complex than estimated. As Hayabusa approached Ryugu and the asteroid resolved into not the expected spheroid, but something resembling an uncut diamond. Kind of fitting for a C-type carbonaceous asteroid, right?
Whoa, hey!
No, I'm here all week. No, I'm not. It's just today. Okay. So the protruding angles of the asteroid mean that JAXA scientists have some complex computing ahead of them. So Hayabusa's mission is a multi-stage dance, and it includes putting a lander and 3 rovers on the surface, and blasting a new crater in the surface, and then having the mothership hover above the impact site and suction up samples. All this interaction with the asteroid means having a detailed map of the surface and a good idea of what to expect in the way of gravity. Well, Ryugu's facets might mean funky gravity.
Funky gravity.
Funky gravity.
Is that the technical term?
That is technical term.
Highly
I got
technical.
it from the Google Translative website. So more of that translation. Okay, so this is paraphrasing, but JAXA's website did have something that said, what this means is the wider areas might have gravity that's not pulling down. So so you'd have if you're sitting on one of those facets, you might be pulling might not be
you might be pulling like sideways.
Yeah, down might not be directly at the core of the asteroid. And so they really need to do some mapping on this.
Yeah.
To get to be able to make those landers stick.
Because we've had issues with landers like not landing.
Yes.
And bouncing a whole lot.
Oh, poor Rosetta, little filet.
Yep.
They did have some malfunction technically on that one. The
thing that stakes into the ground.
Harpoons didn't fire or at the right time, and so it kind of bounced off. But hopefully, the Hayabusa 2 team will have time to fully map the surface, get a really good idea, get a handle on the gravity.
Sure.
And despite this little curveball, the scientists were really excited. So excited that they gave their mission a whole new logo.
Oh, yeah.
And the colors represent some aspects of the folk tale that Ryugu is pulled from. I do not know the specifics of it, but apparently
all right,
the purple is for royalty, if you know.
All right, so purple for royalty, yeah, I guess if you, there's a pink in there, and then the planetary colors. If you in the chat room happen to know, let us know, or in the comments, that would be awesome too.
I'd love to understand.
I'm not sure what the connection is, but I do know that Ryugu, it's based off of the folktale about the Dragon's Palace, and the hero of this folktale is taken on the back of a turtle, a Gamera, and is taken down below the ocean to the Dragon's Palace, where he finds a treasure trove of stuff that he brings back with him. And the reason they chose that is because Hayabusa is going to be taking those samples and bringing that back to Earth, aka taking the chest from the Dragon's Palace and bringing it back to Earth. So that's all I know of the folktale. I don't know what the name of it is or anything like that.
No, but that's really cool.
Yeah.
I love that. I love the parallels there. That was really awesome. And actually, let me hand it back over to you, Space Mike. I'm sorry. Before I do, really quickly. I'll hand it back over to you, Space Mike. We're following a yellow brick road of sorts here.
So yeah, since in the 2 weeks since I was reporting here last, so much stuff has been happening that it's been really hard to choose what to talk about. So I just wanted to kind of combine some of the things that have interested me the most over these past 2 weeks that I wanted to talk about. And first off, we got to talk about a spacewalk that happened at the International Space Station. So on Thursday, June 14th of this month, astronauts Drew Feistel and Ricky Arnold installed 2 new cameras on the front of the lab that will provide views of the commercial crew vehicles that are coming in during their final approach and docking. And the spacewalkers also replaced a faulty high-definition camera and closed a door that was jammed on an experiment that unfortunately failed. And altogether, the EVA lasted about 6 hours and 49 minutes. The faulty instrument, which you can see Drew Feistel replacing there, is called the Cloud Aerosol Transport System, or CATS. It was an instrument which was designed to study the atmosphere using laser firing, and the aperture door, after the instrument failed, was still open, so Feistel manually closed it and wire-tied it so it could be put in aboard a SpaceX cargo ship for disposal. And the view that you're seeing right there is a new view of one of the new cameras that they installed. So I love any of the new HD cameras and beautiful views of that. So that one's really pretty.
Gorgeous views. I love seeing the Earth from there. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. Just a quick stat. This was the 5th spacewalk for Ricky Arnold and the 9th spacewalk for Feistel, who now ranks 3rd in the world. He overtook Peggy Whitson's record. He has a record of 61 hours and 48 minutes now. So that was kind of cool that he got that new record during this spacewalk. Meanwhile, though, let's move on to some other stuff. The 3rd meeting of the National Space Council happened, where they were planning on discussing the administration's 3rd space policy directive, which calls for the establishment of new protocols and procedures to manage and monitor increasing numbers of satellites in low Earth orbit and the tens of thousands of pieces of space junk and debris that pose an increasing threat. However, President Trump did sign the objective, but kind of hijacked the meeting during one of his rambling rants with this statement.
Very importantly, I'm hereby directing the Department of Defense and Pentagon to immediately begin the process necessary to establish a Space Force as the 6th branch of the armed forces. That's a big statement. There's no place like space. Good luck, General Dunford and the Joint Chiefs. I want to wish you a lot of luck with Space Force.
So yeah, Space Force, woo!
I have a question.
This isn't official yet. This still requires an act of Congress, but I mean, he's directed them to try to form this, and there actually is a lot of pros and cons to be able to having an actual Space Force. I mean, one of the pros to it would be to be able to protect all of the different military assets, be it spy satellites, communication satellites, space assets that control different weapon systems that we have, and it would be nice to be able to congregate all of that into one office, not just from the assets from the Air Force, but from all the branches of the military. However, at the same time, the cost, the expense of organizing a new branch of the military while the Air Force is trying to restructure and streamline things is just going to be monumental. So, yeah, we'll see whether or not they'll get congressional support in creating this, but at least we know that this is official now. So we'll see what happens, whether or not we get a Space Force. One interesting thing, though, that I do want to remark on is that in that speech, Trump kept referencing Russia and China and their like anti-satellite capabilities and stuff like that. something I do find interesting is that Russia is moving in the opposite direction. They created their own Space Force many years ago, and just recently they are refolding their Space Force back into the Ministry of Defense. So if this is in response to Russia having their own Space Force, then we're about 10 years too late. So.
But
meanwhile,
well, hang on. I'm going to pause you for a second. Just to reiterate, President Trump can't actually create a new branch of the armed forces on his own, right? I mean, there's a lot more checks and balances that have to occur before this is actually a real thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, he can direct the Joint Chiefs of Staff to do that, but it has to have congressional approval, both the House and the Senate, and all the Joint Chiefs of Staff need to be able to agree on it. And I mean, there's a lot of different steps that this needs to go through to become an official new branch of the military. But there's a lot of analogs to when the Air Force was created. Almost 70 years ago now. There was a lot of people that did not want to take the Air Force away from the Army. They did not want to take those capabilities away. And it took a couple of years, but once that shift, moved over, we can see what the benefits were of that. And, the Army created their own new Air Corps anyway, so that they would still have that capability. But I don't know. I think it could potentially be a good thing. This isn't going to be like Starship Troopers. We're not going to have, actual soldiers in space and fighting those type of space battles. If there are space battles, it'll be robotic.
But, space, Mike. You mean it won't be space battles yet?
Yeah.
So this is like the request for proposal stage.
Pretty much.
Interesting. Well, I have a lot of questions with regards to this. I know you need to move on, but things like what happens to commercial space companies that launch from Air Force bases right now? Like, do those Air Force bases that are primarily launch sites for space, do they convert it over to space bases? The Air Force has been working, especially the 45th Space Wing, has been working like really hard to optimize for these like massive amount of commercial space flights. Would the new Space Force, if they took over, like how would all of that impact? So, and I realize it's way too early to be asking those questions, but those are the things I think about when we talk about moving from Air Force to Space Force. Not necessarily good or bad. It's just there's not enough information yet. All right, I'm sorry I derailed you there. Right. You had one more part to your story.
Kind of related to all of this, one good thing that I did want to mention is that SpaceX's Falcon Heavy flight back in February was enough for the Air Force to certify the vehicle to be able to start launching military payloads, beginning somewhere in the middle of 2020. And they actually got a contract, a $130 million contract for a classified payload that'll launch sometime near the end of 2020. So that's really awesome. And I think that that's cool that not only does SpaceX have their Falcon 9, but now Falcon Heavy available to bid for military payloads. Before then, though, we can all look forward to the second launch of the Falcon Heavy, which is scheduled for November of this year, carrying numerous different satellites for the U.S. Air Force, NASA, and a couple of different research institutions, too. So, yeah. Just some cool news I wanted to share.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Space Mike. And back over to you, Sarah, everyone's favorite word, Oumuamua.
Oh, yes. With the apostrophe at the beginning. For funsies.
For funsies. Yep.
All right. So everybody remembers the first confirmed visitor from another stellar system.
Yeah, it was an alien ship, as I remember.
Absolutely.
Right?
Cigar-shaped.
Cigar-shaped alien ship. That's that's what it was.
Well, turns out, we might not be wrong. It might have some thrusters on there. So, all right. So even though it is now well beyond the observation abilities of any of our telescopes, the astronomers tracked it as long as they could. And after crunching the numbers, a joint team from the, I apologize, it's going to take a second, European Space Agency's Space Situational Awareness Near-Earth Object Coordination Center and the University of Hawaii.
That's the IASIANIOKU.
Yes.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. You wanted a backronym. You laughed about those, but they make sense now, don't they?
Wow.
So they published a paper announcing that the asteroid, formerly comet, is once again a comet. Okay, so when Oumuamua was discovered in October of 2017 by PanSTARRS, or another mouthful, Panoramic Survey Telescope and Rapid Response System in Hawaii, its trajectory indicated that it was probably a comet ejected by a nearby star system, but even though it was close to the sun, there was no observable coma. All right, so now, comets are balls of ices and dusts, so when they get too close to the sun, the outer layers of ice is sublime and form a cloud of gas and ejected dust. That cloud gets lit by the sun, it's very pretty, and even better, it's easy to observe. But despite being about a quarter of an astronomical unit from the sun, Oumuamua didn't appear to be outgassing. From comet to Oumuamua didn't appear to be outgassing. This led astronomers to recategorize Oumuamua from comet to asteroid. No coma, no comet.
Although,
or so they thought.
I was going to say, in that last animation, it looked like there was some outgassing. Was that an animation?
That was an animation.
Okay, so that wasn't real.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nope. The best we could see this thing was.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
That was way too. Yeah. It took my brain a second to get there, but yeah, okay. Yep.
They fooled you.
Yeah, they did. Because they made it so crummy looking.
Yeah,
I was
right?
like, oh, that could be real. But then I'm like, but that was really large in the frame.
Sorry, Hubble-site. Okay, so fast forward a few months of observation, and the team detected a slight increase in Oumuamua's speed relative to the standard orbital mechanics predictions. So something had to be giving Oumuamua a push. The best fit for the data was, wait for it, yes, cometary outgassing. But why no coma, you ask? Excellent question. So the best guess the team has is that Oumuamua isn't expelling the usual gases. Standard comet coma chemicals are hydrogen cyanide, formaldehyde, and dihydrogen monoxide.
That's a live feed right there, right?
Yes,
live
totally.
feed from, okay, yep.
Let's see. All right.
Space Force added cameras.
Kill the bugs! Kill the bugs! All right, so if Oumuamua was outgassing carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide, it would produce a less visible cloud. And also, the dust being expelled is larger than usual, and larger dust turns out to be less easily detected. It doesn't bounce as much light around.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so it's harder to see, and so that could be...
It's the opposite of what I would have thought. Yeah.
Absolutely, everybody else. And so that's why we're all like, no coma, must be an asteroid. But after further inspection, nope, back to asteroid. Back to comet. So, just one last fun fact. Dr. David Jewett of UCLA, he was part of the initial team to study then C217U1, C is for comet, by the way. He estimates that...
Those names.
It's clinical, right? It's like, this is the U1 that we've discovered in 2017. All right. So he estimates that for us to have seen this object with this telescope the way we did, there would have to be approximately 10,000 extrasolar visitors in our solar system at any given moment. Just for the law of averages for us to have found this one. I know. So, good news, Oumuamua is probably not the only one here, and we will have plenty of time to study extrasolar comasteroid that emits.
Maybe, or it could also be that this was just a weird one. Law of averages, but that doesn't mean that
it does not guarantee.
Right.
But we're going to keep looking. We've got the near Earth object. We've got a whole bunch of near Earth object projects that are just scouring the skies. Neil Wise has mapped hundreds of thousands of objects. So. Really? Maybe we'll catch one more.
Got a question from the chat room from Constructor 1701 who asks, is the strange chemical composition down to its being extrasolar, different ingredients?
Everything is guesswork at this point. But one of the project scientists said that it's possible that the lighter, more familiar gases were all lost to sublimation on its transit from its home star system. And all that's left is these heavier gases. And also, the smaller, lighter dust would have been lost along the way as well. And so all that was left was the heavier dust grains.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Sure.
All right, we're going to take a quick calendar break. And when we come back, we're going to be having an interview with Death Wish Coffee. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes. She won't give up or quit or fall for little fashion lies. Filled with awesome expectation, this girl's a fascination. And nothing in her way will keep her from her destination. 'Cause she's fire walking, she's fire walking. When it's hot, she keeps on moving, through the heat keeps on improving. Yeah, she's fire walking, she's fire walking to be free.
Space Mike is furiously working on his next story. Before we get into our interview, again, thank you to all of the Escape Velocity citizens who helped to make this specific segment of this episode happen. These are people who contributed $10 or more. We also have our Orbital citizens. These are people who've contributed $5 or more to this exact episode. They get a ton of rewards, and to find out what those are and how it helps the show, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. All right, I'm going to hand it off over to Carrie Ann, who will be interviewing the incredible Jeff with Death Wish Coffee.
It is kind of a mouthful, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. It really is.
So as Ben likes to say, I am Carrie Ann. Typically Capcom, although Ben was taking over so beautifully for me today, and which means I get to be the commander. So I am the commander now, as they say. I have the incredible Jeff from, this is the funniest part to me, this is the incredible Jeff from the Fueled by Deathcast, which is the podcast of Death Wish Coffee. I've never even heard of a coffee brand that has their own podcast. This is insanity. I need to know more.
Okay, so as a coffee company, our founder and owner, Mike Brown, is really, really passionate about fueling your day. And it's not just about when you wake up in the morning and grabbing that cup of coffee. Obviously, that's our product. That's what we want. But we want to fuel your entire day. We want to be your lifestyle brand. We want to be the clothes you wear and the entertainment that you consume. So I started out as our broadcasting manager to create a lot of that kind of content. And one of those things is this podcast, Fueled by Deathcast. The idea behind it is it's a weekly show where we have a guest on every single week. And we ask, we basically have a conversation about what these people do, why they do it. And we ask the same question every week. What fuels you? Because we are all fueled by death. We are all fueled by this idea that we want to leave this world a little different before we inevitably leave it for good.
That's wonderful. So Death Wish Coffee is branded as being the strongest coffee in the world. And now you are, at least shortly going to be, once the Dragon space capsule gets up to the International Space Station, soon to be the strongest coffee off-world. How does that feel, first of all?
It's incredible. I mean, this company, since its inception in 2012, has done some absolutely incredible things, and we are still a very small business. We just hired our 31st employee, so we're just a business of 31 employees. And since 2012, we've been lucky enough. We won the Intuit QuickBooks Small Business Big Game competition back in 2015, which got us a Super Bowl commercial in Super Bowl 50. We've also sponsored events for NASCAR and Poker Central, and we were the official coffee of New York Comic-Con last year.
Awesome.
And with us now on our way to the International Space Station to fuel the astronauts of Expedition 56, it's a dream come true for all of us. It really is.
That's absolutely amazing. So for those of you who don't know my day job, I am a barista. I'm a barista supervisor. And so I clearly have a love of coffee and a love of space. And I really was starting to think I was kind of the only one until I started hearing a lot about you guys. I love that you have this Fueled by Death sort of thing going on, but I have noticed, because I of course had to do some research and started watching a whole bunch of different episodes of your podcast, and you regularly have a science segment on your podcast, and oftentimes you're talking about space related things, which is just awesome to me. But where did you get that passion to combine these two?
Well, personally speaking, when I was coming up with the show, it started out as just an audio podcast, and as I was coming up with the show, I wanted to have a couple segments to kind of ease you into the show before we actually got to the meat of it, which is the guest every week. And one of those was always going to be science, because I've been enamored with science since I was a young boy. I used to, as a very, very young kid, I used to look up at the stars and the moon and just be so interested in space exploration and just space in general, science fiction too, huge science fiction nerd. And I wanted to incorporate that because I feel that is something that everybody inherently likes, even if they don't know that they do. Right? Science is imagination. So is science fiction. And I think that, bringing that more out into the world is something that's very passionate for me. And I think it instills passion in other people. And since then, our show now has split where the podcast is still in its same form where every week we talk to a guest, but now it's predominantly that. And then we have a companion show that's much more of a visual thing that we put out as an internet-based television show every week on Facebook Live and then also on YouTube. And that's where the science segment lives in that.
Nice. I love that. And so it was actually really early on when you had the companion pieces you're talking about, the video podcast, that you guys had on astronaut Nicole Stott.
Yes.
And
yes. So
that was the precipice of this.
I'll tell you, when I started this show, I put together a list of guests, like white whales, like, the guests that you want to get. And at the top of that list was just written astronaut. I will always, always wanted to talk to an astronaut. And I honestly just did a random search of like a Google search of just astronauts. And I just would type in random keywords because you type in astronaut and you get the Wikipedia page.
Oh, sure.
I just was typing in different things. And I came across this website, The Artistic Astronaut, which is Nicole Stott. Nicole Stott was part of the STS-128 and 129 mission. And she was also part of the STS-133 mission. And during the STS-128 and 129 mission, she was the first astronaut ever to paint in space, which blew my mind. I would have thought somebody would have done that already. And that kind of got me thinking. And her website had a contact information. So I wrote her just a cold email. Hi, my name is Jeff Ayers. I just started a podcast for this company you probably never heard of. And I gave her the pitch for it. And I was like, if you'd love to be a guest, I'd love to talk to you. Thinking, this will get deleted or it'll go to her spam folder and that's it. I got a response within a week. And she was like, I'd love to be on your show. And we got her on the show. And it was amazing because we not only had her do the guest portion, I also had her do the science segment of the show at that time as well. Because at that time, a spacewalk had just happened on the International Space Station, like the day or two before we interviewed her. And I knew that she had performed one as well. So I wanted to kind of get her perspective on what it was like to, put your spacesuit on, go out the airlock and be out there for hours. And the amount of focus, the amount of training that these astronauts do is absolutely incredible. It really is. They are heroes for sure in every aspect of the word of what they do up there. And people, and this is something that's lost on a lot of people. People have been living and working in orbit on this planet or around this planet for the last 2 decades. Yeah. And we never even think about it, And so we talked to her all about performing that spacewalk, what it was like to, look at the Earth below her feet and do these different types of science experiments. And then I asked her, what is it like when you come back in? You have to reacclimate, you have to, get out of all your gear and get back into being, just a normal astronaut in this working environment in the International Space Station. And I was like, what is like the first thing that you want to do when you get back in? And she said, without hesitation, I want a strong cup of coffee. So, as on my show, and I'm just, I'm having a great conversation with her. Both my co-hosts and I just, basically joked around with her. We're like, what would it be like to get Death Wish coffee in space? And she was the one who was like, I think that's a great idea. I think people would really like it. Let's talk about it.
Awesome. That's so awesome. I love that. So once you get this, Nicole, is my understanding, got you guys in touch with the food services, essentially, of NASA for the International Space Station down in Houston. Is that correct?
Yes. So, again, after she had said that, I figured it was probably a joke.
Right.
We were having a great conversation, a great rapport on the podcast. She was so nice, so welcoming, and I just was like, we'll leave it at that. Throughout the last year, we've become friends. We email back and forth. She was just a part of that incredible documentary series on National Geographic called One Strange Rock. I highly recommend to anybody if you haven't seen that. It's absolutely incredible. And I was talking to her through when she was doing that and the press tour and everything. And I would send her coffee from time to time. Never really being like, when are we getting our coffee into space? Every now and again, we would talk about, you know, her being back on the show or whatever, and it might come up, but it was never like a priority. And a couple months ago, she contacted me and she was like, you remember when we talked about getting your coffee in space? I think I have a way to do that. And I was like, no, okay, this isn't real. Like, what do you mean? Well, one of her good friends is Serena Onion Chancellor, who is part of Expedition 56 on the International Space Station right now. And she is an avid coffee lover. And Nicole is such a fan of our coffee that she wanted to share her favorite coffee with her friend in space.
Oh, I love it.
So she was like, I think I can put you in contact with the NASA Food Labs, and hopefully they can help you get some of your coffee in a care package for her. And she got us in contact with the NASA Food Labs. And I have to say, here at Death Wish Coffee, we make a lot of products outside of coffee. We do apparel, we do mugs, we do, you know, all sorts of random things. So we work with a lot of vendors. The greatest vendor we've ever worked with is NASA. Hands down, the nicest people, the best people there. The people that we worked with were so awesome. Once we sent them the coffee, that they formed all their tests on it to make sure it was all right. And I'm thinking still to myself, this will never happen. Or even if it does, they'll, you know, to make Nicole and Serena happy, they'll put like maybe a bean in like her care package or something. We did it for you. They ended up packaging, and I actually have one right here. They ended up packaging 60 packs of these single serve packs of Death Wish coffee, and sent them up in the actual supplies, not just the care package for Serena. They sent them up in the actual supply rations for her and the rest of the crew up there. And I'm just over the moon. This photo that you're showing right now, that I got to watch the launch live yesterday morning, and those colors, that's real. None of that's photoshopped. None of that is you know, manipulated in any ways. The sunrise hit just as the separation happened, and all those colors of the smoke happened. You want to call a dragon capsule a dragon capsule? That's a tail if I've ever seen one. And I was part of the NASA social event covering the entire launch yesterday and the day before with 40 amazing social media people and some people directly from NASA. And some of the people in the social event that have seen launches before, and the guides in NASA who have seen upwards of 20 different launches, have said they have never, ever seen a launch look like that.
Awesome. That's so... to be a part of history like that is just so incredible. So specifically talking about the coffee and this entire process, like, what was the most unexpected thing about the process of changing your coffee, which is typically, so like I said, I'm a barista. I typically work with espresso coffee. We do have drip coffee on site where I am. It's not Death Wish, but you and I can talk about that later. You know, you have to change it. You can't just drink regular coffee in space. There's a whole other thing. I mean, you showed the single serving pack, which is clearly like a freeze dried kind of product that they have to add water to it. So how did you, I mean, because I would imagine that you don't just give them the coffee and they go through the process and you call it a day. Like, were there testing? Was this tasting? Like, what was the most unexpected part about this process?
Well, the unexpected part was that it happened at all. But I'll tell you this. This is where I'm a big proponent of, if you say something into the universe, then it exists and it has legs. And, you know, maybe that is as far as it goes. But if you say it into the universe, sometimes it becomes a thing, you know, like the greatest ideas. Again, I'll go back to science fiction. You know, you look at, you know, your favorite science fiction like Asimov or Clark or even, you know, Star Trek. You know, people made these ideas, and now some of them are in reality we hold in our hands every day. And, you know, we had thought about different versions of coffee. We're always thinking about that. We sell a whole bean version, we sell a ground version, and we sell a K-cup version. At the end of this year, we're actually coming out with a cold brew variety, and we're coming out with an Nespresso, you know, single serve type variety as well. But something that we had been researching and developing has been an instant version, a freeze-dried version of coffee, because there's two major markets that, you know, enjoy that. One being the outdoor enthusiast, you know, the camper, the hiker, the person on the go. They love their instant coffee. But we learned with this business that the Asian culture, specifically Japan, the coffee culture there is very much an instant coffee. So therefore, we were thinking, well, maybe we should at least pursue this idea to see if it would even be viable, something to sell, because then we could break into that market. Obviously, like I said, we want to be everywhere.
Yeah.
Caffeinate the world is the plan. And so we had this in research and development for about a month, maybe a month and a half. And then Nicole got a hold of me with this idea. So it was just serendipity that we even were pursuing the thing that was the actual kind of coffee that was going to have to be brought into space anyways. So then we streamlined it. We made sure that we could get it done. The third party, because our facility isn't even set up to make an instant coffee. So
right.
we found this third party company that's amazing, that helped us develop the instant coffee to retain the flavor profile, the caffeine content of Death Wish coffee, the way that we roast the coffee. And the greatest thing is this company has already worked with NASA developing freeze-dried products for them. So they knew the ropes and what needed to happen. So we already had a leg up going into it.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome. I love it. That's so cool. So did you get to taste any of it? Like, does it still hold?
Oh yeah. We tested it before we sent it to
good.
NASA for sure. And I got to say, I am grind your beans in the morning and use my French press. That's my ritual. I love that way of brewing. But and so I'm not usually an instant coffee drinker, but I really was proud of this product because, like I said, I think it really retains the flavor profile, the caffeine profile to some degree. We are the world's strongest coffee when you grind our beans or you use the ground version of our coffee. If you're freeze drying anything, you're taking some stuff out of it. So it's not as caffeinated, but it's a heck of a lot more caffeinated than the coffee that they have on the International Space Station right now.
Totally. Do you even know what that was, by the way? Like, do you have any clue?
The caffeine content, I don't. I'm going to be contacting NASA Labs again because I'm so interested on the results of the tests that they did. I don't know if I'm allowed to know that, but I really do want to. As a science nerd, I would love to just see those numbers and see like what actually they were able to discern from our instant coffee.
Oh, that's so awesome. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we have a whole bunch of questions coming in from the chat room, some of which you may be able to answer and some of which you may not be able to answer. So
I'll make up.
Yeah, perfect. First of all, Prismara says, how do you filter coffee in 0G? Which I guess for this kind of thing, you wouldn't necessarily need to, right? Those are the single serving packs?
Right, yeah. So this pack, again, basically all you have to do, there's this nozzle right here, and the astronauts will take like a hot water valve, put it into the nozzle, hydrate the coffee, and it even has instructions, 8 ounces of water, 2 to 5 minutes on it, and it kind of, like an instant version, you kind of push it around and everything. And then there's a straw attachment that they put on this, and they drink it like a juice bag.
Nice.
But I believe it was 2015 or 2014. They installed what they call the ISS espresso.
That SpaceX's Dragon capsule also brought up. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and there was a guy that actually created a 0G coffee cup that through wicking, if you know what wicking is, they could actually drink a cup of coffee through wicking. I've seen video of it and it looks cool, but it seems super dangerous, especially, like liquid, like floating around with a bunch of electronics and wires all over the place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, I love it. That's hilarious. This is a really great question. Again, I don't know if you'll be able to answer, but Space Danger says, why not just grow it on the ISS?
So it's funny. I'm so glad that this question got asked. So just down at NASA on Thursday, I asked the people at the Veggie Labs who are developing ways to grow crops in space. I had to ask, I was like, so what's the timeline for coffee? Because right now they're working on growing kale, they're working on growing dragon lettuce, and they're actually working on setting up the first tomato plants in the next 2 years up to the International Space Station to grow those. And they said that, the more that they're testing this, the more that they're working. Coffee is definitely something as a crop that they want to grow. It's just the matter of space and the matter of the apparatus, the veggie apparatus that they have. And just as a side note on all this, I had Dr. Michio Kaku on our podcast recently, and we were talking about colonizing Mars. And I asked him specifically when we do colonize Mars, and hopefully we start, harvesting the water and therefore growing crops, a la, the blockbuster movie The Martian or whatever, on Mars. What is the viability of growing coffee? And Michio Kaku told me straight up, he was like, if we can get the biometrics and the greenhouses set up the way that people like him and Elon Musk are talking about doing when we do colonize, coffee will be 100% able to be grown in that environment, and the caffeine should hit us just about the same.
I love it. That goes directly to this question that came off of YouTube. Raj says, does coffee affect the human body differently in a low or zero gravity environment? That's actually something I have no idea. Do you have any clue about that, Jeff?
I don't have any clue specifically about the caffeine. I know I have been told from NASA Food Labs and from astronauts like Nicole Stott that caffeine still hits you. Like when she would drink coffee after a spacewalk, she would feel that jolt of energy. But it's affecting you a little bit different because of your diet. It's not even just the 0G. The diet of an astronaut is very high in protein and very high in sodium.
Sure.
So and you're also, as people know, you're also, shedding bone mass.
Yes.
You're shedding lots of different chemicals and stuff like that. So caffeine is affecting you, but in a slightly different way. You might actually be more awake. I'm not sure.
Interesting. God, that's funny. Another question coming off of our Twitch channel. Hanny says, hey, do you ever think that you'd be able to indulge your science interest to the extent that you have while running the podcast, while running this company?
First of all, I wish I was running the company. I do not run the company. I'm just the broadcasting manager. I don't have to make all those crazy, money decisions and all that kind of stuff. But no, never. Like I said before, when I had my list of white whales for the show, I wrote astronaut up there thinking, maybe someday, and not even just having an astronaut on the podcast to me was like best day ever kind of thing,
Right.
And now, being able to work closely with NASA, consider an astronaut my friend, have something that I had a hand in on its way to the International Space Station, it still doesn't seem real. I flew back from Florida today, and I'm still processing everything that just happened with the launch and everything that I got to experience. And it just, honest to gosh, it does not seem like it's even a real thing. But I'm just so happy that it is, because again, I'm so happy that science and especially space exploration is in the conversation again. And I want to say this real quick, from throwing it back to the beginning of this show with the news segments, politics aside, with Trump saying, Space Force, what I take away from something like that is at least we're talking about it.
Yep.
I'm so happy for people out there in the world like Michio Kaku, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Elon Musk, even Jeff Bezos, these people who want to make sure that people are not only going to space, working in space, figuring out ways that we can, travel through the solar system, but that people here on Earth are excited about it and want to talk about it.
Totally. 1,000%. All right. So we've got a couple of standard questions that we typically end every interview with. Although it's funny, now that I'm looking at them, I'm pretty sure we've covered most of them anyway. So this will be relatively quick, I suppose. First question is, what is your favorite space mission? And I'm guessing I already know the answer to this one.
I mean, okay, the easy answer is the one that just happened and brought Deathwish Coffee to the International Space Station. But, I mean, that's a tough question for, favorite space mission.
Right.
I mean, I could throw it all the way back to John Glenn. I think about John Glenn so much because he paved the way as a human being to prove that we could do what we do now. And again, going to Kennedy Space Center just a couple of days ago and seeing the tight space that man had to, squeeze himself into in his suit to orbit the Earth. And it just then skyrocketed, pun intended, the entire space program. I think that's just incredible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Amazing. That's awesome. Next question is, do you prefer human or robot exploration of the cosmos?
I honestly prefer human, but if I'm gonna be as science fiction nerd as I possibly can, we're gonna need both. That's why I'm really excited about this Simon project that's going up, thanks to the people at DLS and IBM. We're bringing up this AI because I'm very curious to see how that's going to work. Even though, and I know that these jokes have been made, but even though it's very much HAL 9000 there, you know,
quite.
Space Odyssey kind of craziness. But I believe that with the ability to have artificial intelligence robots that can help humans perform tasks at a higher rate, I think that will help us get farther into the cosmos, and that's the end goal. We need to be an interplanetary species for sure.
Lovely. Well, that leads directly into the next question, which is, where should we go next?
Mars, 100%. But before Mars, and I'm all for this as well, we need to have a presence on the moon. This whole deal of figuring out how to get what we need into space from Earth and out of our atmosphere, we are at an impasse at this point with fossil fuel, with the ability to, have it viable for human or robot interaction. I really believe that we should be pouring resources and energy into having either a base on the moon or something that's orbiting the moon that allows us to then go from there to Mars and then hopefully all over the solar system.
I love it. And then finally, why space?
Why space?
Yeah.
Because it's there. Because it's there. The argument is always this. Our planet is 75% water or 73% water or whatever, and we know so little about the depths of the oceans, and we know so little about our own planet, and I agree with that. I think that we should, continue exploring our own planet, but again, we need to be an interplanetary species, especially if we plan on surviving for centuries and eons later. And I think that starts now. Space is out there. We have been making leaps and bounds since the 40s now, putting things into upper atmosphere and beyond. And now, is the time to really start, again, getting the entire human consciousness behind it, so we start traveling the stars as soon as possible.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. As Bonsai in the chat room says, his story is so good, I might start drinking coffee. The incredible Jeff, fueled by Deathcast, Death Wish Coffee. You clearly live up to the name. Thank you, sir. You and I could talk for hours on end and probably bore absolutely everybody. But I want to invite you back. If you ever get these super secret test results that you're not supposed to have, please come back and we'll go over all of them with a microscope.
This was absolutely incredible to talk to you guys today, and I loved being on the show. I would love to come back. Thank you so much.
Totally, absolutely. All right, well, we're going to take another little bit of a break, and when we come back, we're all going to be together discussing your questions, comments, concerns, and complaints about last week's show. Stay with us. There's more tomorrow up next.
Science. It both draws us together and tears us apart, brings discoveries to cure us and threaten us. It is neither good nor evil. It is what we decide to make of it. There is so much more to learn, and we are curious. Together, let's explore the science of tomorrow.
There we go.
Almost didn't make it.
Welcome.
I was like, I'll have to fill in. That's fine. I'm the commander. I can do that.
That was, if you could see what happened behind the scenes, it was all sorts of magical. Before we get into comments from this last week's show, I did want to give a huge thank you to everyone who make this show possible. These are our Escape Velocity citizens. They've contributed $10 or more to this specific episode. We also have our Orbital citizens who have contributed $5 or more to this specific episode. And of course, we also have our suborbital citizens who have contributed $2.50 or more to this specific episode. To find out how you can help crowdfund the shows of tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. All right, now, in my running, I inadvertently closed my rundown.
So last week what we had on, in case you need that extra help.
I do. Thank you very much for that.
The one I called Mr. Dr. Charles, Dr. Charles Liu, from Orbit 11.25. He was fantastic and definitely put up with all of our shenanigans, as did the incredible Jeff. Thank you for that. That was a really great, really interesting interview. And it was really cool. If you didn't get a chance to see it, it was one of those magical moments where we had an item in the news where Charles was like, actually?
Yeah, he was like, he was waving his hands, trying to get our attention.
The whole show.
Yeah, that was
the best.
Yeah, really
I
great.
enjoyed that moment quite a bit where he was like, I can answer that.
Yep.
And so we just bounced right over to him. I was like, oh, that's
then maybe
amazing.
you should, because
really
you're
cool.
probably better at it than we are.
All right, so thank you very much, CAFCOM.
Wow.
CAFCOM, get it?
Wow.
Caffeine.
Wow. And again,
CAFCOM.
really quickly, for those of you who may not have been watching the entire time we've been on, and I mean the 10 years, not just this particular show, but those of you who have may recall that at one point, our show was in the back of a coffee shop. So coffee in space literally runs in our veins.
Oh, yeah, we've done coffee with this show for years. We used to have Blast Off Blend.
Yes.
Remember, you could get Blast Off Blend.
I do remember.
All right, let's start off with some comments. This one comes from F Cycles from YouTube, who says, cannot agree more with Mr. Dr. Charles regarding what we are good at. To have positive attitude, don't be shy to fail and take longer than any other. Then you can do anything you want. Also, something you dislike, be doing it. You may end up by being passionate, surprisingly. In other words, do something that you don't like, you could inadvertently actually end up liking it.
Yeah.
Then, when you have too many passions and are too busy, that's another thing, but that's a way cooler thing in life than the opposite. So be positive, do even things that you think you may not like doing, do those, and you never know, you may actually end up liking the things in the long run. I couldn't agree more with F Cycles.
It is. Wow. It's a difficult thing to live up to.
It really, it's easy to always go negative.
Yeah.
Right? It's so much easier to just be pessimistic and just like, oh, everything sucks, everything's awful, nothing is good. But those aren't the people who change the world.
No.
The people who are positive and who look at some of the problems and instead of saying, oh, hey, this is a huge negative, how do we fix this and make it into a positive? They're the ones who change the world. Yeah. Those are the Elon Musks, the Jeff Bezos, the Dave Mastins, the so forth and so on.
That's the thing I always hate about all those, like, oh, there's an old saying, because it always feels like, well, if it's old, it's probably outdated, and yet these things are not. That is why they have stood the test of time. So looking for the silver lining is so true and so necessary most of the time.
We do try to be an optimistic look at the future on the show as well. I mean, that's something that we try for.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Although, to be fair, and no offense to Death Wish Coffee in any way, shape, or form, being fueled by death, that honestly, that scares me a little bit.
The morbid way of looking at it, but I get what they're saying.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, kind of in the whole idea of like we only have so much time, so I better make the most of it.
Right?
Quite.
Yellow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yellow coffee.
All right, next up from Reddit is Cap MSFC, Marshall Space Flight Center.
Maybe.
I am not dismissing the possibility that life on Mars could be indistinguishable. I'm making the case that it either is or isn't. And if it is, then no amount of decontamination procedures can assure that life is indigenous. By the way, this is in reference to a comment. We're going Inception here. This is comment on a comment. The best way to search for life, in my opinion, is to accept this and use humans to dramatically ramp up our ability to do science on Mars. So basically the idea is, look, you can run all the decontamination procedures you want, ever. You still will not actually be able to guarantee 100% that life didn't come from Earth, right? Your rocket passed through our atmosphere. Maybe some spore of something got stuck on the backside of the rocket, and then when the spacecraft deployed, it transferred over there, and that's the life that you're detecting. Even though it all went through decontamination procedures, it's still absolutely possible. Right? So the point is, humans on Mars could actually potentially help that. I know you were passionate against that, I believe. So I'll give you a platform here.
All right. And it felt like a slightly different angle last time. It felt like
it could be.
Yes.
This was the same commenter, by the way.
Yes.
And was clarifying their point of view. Yeah, certainly.
This one, I was thinking about this last night. For me, this question feels more like, why aren't we just sending people to Mars? And for the answer to that, it's we can't yet. I mean, we could get a person to Mars. We just can't get them back. And you know, the reality of it right now, yes, totally. In the future, awesome. And this decontamination procedure is just so that the robot itself doesn't contaminate the planet. And it's a best effort. So this feels like it's two questions. One, why are we going to Mars? Why are we exploring? And two, why aren't we sending people? So I would say we're exploring Mars to explore it. Right? We want to, it's the same reason we go to the Amazon and try to make as little impact there as possible. It's not that we can have no impact, but we want to have as little impact as possible. So we are doing the same thing with Mars and our decontamination of robots. Because why take a germ fest if you can just send an accidental germ? It's just in the long run going to be better in case there is an ecosystem that lives on Mars and you want to damage it as little as possible.
Sure.
But then why aren't we sending people is because at this very moment, we can't bring them back. It is a death sentence at this moment. But with all the research that we're learning, with the robots that we've decontaminated, we're getting closer and closer to being able to send the people that we both, because I'm totally with you. I want to have people on Mars. I want to be one of the people on Mars. But we can't. I want to be able to come back.
Sure.
And so that means sending decontaminated robots so that when we get to send people to Mars, we will have as pristine an environment as possible to do the faster scientist, human on the planet observations.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of the comments for last week's show, not necessarily in this comment, were like, if we're always looking for life on Mars and not willing to send anything until we find it, and there's no life on Mars, we'll never send anyone to Mars. But to your point, it's not that we're waiting to find life or not find life. Right. It's that we can't send ourselves. The only thing we can send are these small. And Curiosity and Mars 2020 are large for what they are, but they're still not that big.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing we can send.
It is, yeah. At the moment.
At the moment.
Right?
At the moment.
Because we're going to send a big fracking rocket.
Big Falcon rocket.
Yes.
Well, somebody's going to send a big Falcon rocket. Somebody else is going to send a big fracking rocket. I got you. I got you.
There's multiple space, right? You got Big Falcon rocket, Blue Origin Space Mike. What's the one after it's?
Well, it's probably named after the first human that's been on Mars. Oh wait, sorry. Go ahead.
Space Mike.
After New Glenn, they're going to have New Armstrong.
New Armstrong, yep, that makes so. New Armstrong would likely be in that same classification of rocket. Do you know, Space Mike, is New Armstrong in a BFR SLS category?
Other than people at Blue Origin, nobody knows what category it is. There's no specs that I've seen that I can trust anyway.
I'm going to pretend.
I do want to bring up that both Boeing and Lockheed Martin at least have plans for Mars landers that would be able to return humans from the surface, although their architecture would kind of be like the lunar one, where like they would lift off from the surface and then rendezvous with their spacecraft in orbit and then return home. So there are plans out there. They probably won't develop those unless they get the money, but there's a couple Mars landers in the works.
This just in, I apologize. It seems our director knows exactly what the name is going to be.
I can see it in preview.
Looks like
Go ahead and send it over. It's the New Watney. That's amazing. But my point is, we're getting there, right? We've got SpaceX developing something. Space Mike is mentioning Boeing and Lockheed developing something. NASA's developing something. Blue Origin's likely developing something. The New Watney.
Right. Many companies. Pattern, in case you haven't noticed it yet.
Many companies working on this. So, and I think you're right. When the question is reframed that way, I think we're all kind of generally on the same page.
Yeah.
But would love the continuing conversation on that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right, moving right along. From Bruce on YouTube, he says, general comment, the world is metric. USA is something else. Please standardize. Are you global or are you American? Sorry, Lisa. I don't know why we're apologizing to Lisa.
She's got it right.
Lisa's like...
She's global and American, so I don't know why we're apologizing to Lisa.
She's like
Or she'll be American
from
in
the
a
upside
second.
down is
Yeah,
what
there
she
you
is.
go.
And your USA audience is, I'm convinced, metric capable and use it in the studies, papers, engineering. So to that point, I don't know where we screwed up imperial metric, but
it was probably me. I'm sure I said miles.
No.
Maybe.
The thing is that sometimes when you do these news reports, right, the area that you get the information from may only present it in one fashion. And honestly, it's just a human error to kind of glance over and go, yes, that's miles. I understand what that is. I don't do the conversion. I don't have to do the conversion. I don't feel a need to do the conversion. I apologize for not doing the conversion. You may or may not ever do that. And I feel like in general that is an acceptable answer. Also, it's not like you said, I don't know, it's going for you give some sort of unit of measurement, in which case that can be extrapolated or translated into whatever other unit of measurement is the preferred way.
Right. So to that question, we actually do have a standard on the show. We use metric and coordinated time for everything. Coordinated Earth time, as I like to say.
Well, coordinated Mars time is different, so you have to differentiate.
It is. Coordinated universal time is the official time metric for the show, which you see us tweet, and metric is the official measurement for the show. However, you need to understand that, as Carrie Ann said, we do live in the U.S. We did grow up with imperial. That's what we see and use every day, for better or for worse. And so sometimes imperial is going to slip in there. We might forget metric. Dude, just add it in the comments. Like, I understand and appreciate that we are weird, and I also think that the U.S. should move to metric. But we are going to screw up from time to time. We're an internet show. It's going to happen. So I apologize in advance. But yeah. Yes, metric is the official format of the show.
I know I know where I did it last show. I put it in, when I was putting Terry Cruz's in the screws in space.
But it's not. You're not. If you did do it last show, it's not just you. Like this is Imperial has made it into the show many times because exactly what Carrie Ann said.
It's so easy for us to respond to.
Yeah. And if you're not paying attention, you don't like. Especially as you're really quickly trying to do things, your last minute notes, you just boom Imperial.
But the nice thing is there are a number of areas, a number of sources that will list both, which is fantastic. Mike actually does a fantastic job of continuing to do the translation, even if it's not readily present in the original news source.
Thank you. It's funny because I actually have kind of dropped the imperial lately. Because normally, I would be just like, and this was 257 kilometers or 300 and some miles. Yeah. And lately, I've just been dropping the miles. Just all right, let's just go with metric then. That's cool with me.
And you can add.
It's nice. It's nice to have that for our American audience, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it is what we grew up with. It's what we know, and approximately 50% of our viewers come from the U.S. So, when 50% of your viewers have a hard time or don't natively think that way, it is nice to have both. But again, the official show format is Imperial because it is. I mean, we had to choose one, and it doesn't make sense to do coordinated time and then.
Right.
Well, we do metric time. We do metric time, and no, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
Next up, this is from.
I'm sorry. I have to read this comment from Dutta. This is great. There's a saying in America, and this is a nice little translation here. As someone suggested earlier, you give them 2.54 centimeters, they take a whole 1,609,344 meters. As the saying goes in America, you give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Oh my God. That is easy. And as old Bill says, metric is easy, changing is not. Yeah, because, and I know we've lingered on this way too long, and I'm sorry, everyone. But you know what? When you think and work in metric, it does take a little bit of time for you to understand, 1 meter is about 3 feet. So I know about how long 3 feet is, but then because I don't work in that world all the time, I have to think, okay, well, 1 meter is actually about like that or so, right? It just takes you a moment. You have to translate.
Yeah, it's another language.
It's another language. Yeah, that's exactly correct. Yeah. So just remember, everyone who's not in the U.S. watching this show, when we do metric, we are all translating.
Yes.
We're trying to figure out what we're doing. All right. Next up from YouTube, this is Stefan, I believe, or Steven? Steven? Said the trash segment, wrong attitude. All caps, wrong. A better attitude would be all new satellites need a deorbit system built in prior to launch. Also, anything in space that's no longer operational should be fair game. But I disagree. So you still need to have trash collection.
Yeah.
Because even if you have a deorbit system, what if your satellite fails? What if it's out of control? What if, China launched an anti-satellite system? Your deorbit system's not going to work when the government destroys your satellite. Yeah, now you've got all of this stuff in space. Something comes off your spacecraft accidentally, or your satellite, right? Like if photovoltaic falls off. Okay, that doesn't happen. But yeah.
Plus, there's all the stuff that is already there.
Yes.
We need to get to the clean slate before we can say, okay, everything from here on out is going to have some deorbit system. There's going to be accidents. It's okay.
Don't they have
a way to deal
and
with it.
And we're still trying to figure it out, too, of what the best deorbit systems would be. That's why this mission is testing out all these different types. And I mean, depending on the satellite and which orbit it's in, it's going to need a different type of deorbit system. Like if you have something that's in low Earth orbit, one of those sails would be great, to give you some drag so it'll re-enter faster. But if you're in something that's, even in medium Earth orbit, but especially in GEO, that would work over tens of thousands of years, but, if you need something to deorbit quickly, you'd have to have a different system to that. So we're still trying to figure out what the best deorbit systems would be.
Introtron from the chat room says, what if you lose a bag of tools?
I wish we had that footage.
And for those of you who may not know where this question is coming from, a number of years ago, God, it's over 7 now, there was a spacewalk going on the International Space Station, and there was a bag of tools, and it just became out of reach, and it eventually deorbited, but that was a scary prospect at the time of it could hit things. It was a whole bag of tools, so the tools could come out. They could start floating around. They could hit lots of things. Those things could hit other things. Like this could be a huge issue, and they tracked it all the way down. And it sounds kind of funny now because nothing really happened, and they're like, oh, they lost a bag of tools, and man, that sucks. I guess I'll have to 3D print some new ones, which at the time was not available. But still, the point is still there. The point is still made that, sure, you can do whatever you want from now on. However, you still have all this legacy technology up there doing whatever it is that it's doing.
It happens.
Oh, we're an internet show.
Excellent.
I was going to ask. I've lost it. All right. Next up from Reddit, Locas asks this clip. Locase. This clip, so last week's show, from 55 minutes and 50 seconds to about 59:40, is a formula for success in life. So that's from Mr. Dr. Charles.
Referring to Dr. Charles.
Yep. It is born of hundreds of, sometimes thousands of hours of honing's one craft. This is amazing device culminates in one amazing thought, and quote, design your own future, unquote. I absolutely love that, right? Go out and there's something, I'm going to say this, and it's funny because, we're a show that talks about things, but don't just talk about things, go and do them. So,
to be fair, we talked about doing something, and then we made a show so we could continue to talk about doing something.
Yeah, well, that was the point I was going to make, is that, one of the things we wanted to do was inspire everyone. We wanted to find a better way to tell some of these stories, and so we worked on, at the time, Space Vidcast. We did really cool things with shuttle launch coverage, and we worked and we actually built things. But it doesn't have to be a video show; it can be whatever. Yeah. So as mentioned, design your own future, and if you're passionate about space, figure out what you want to do in space. And using comments from earlier, maybe there's something in that whole thing that you don't want to do, that you absolutely hate doing. Do it anyhow. Just work on it, and you might be pleasantly surprised in the long run. Yeah.
See, here's just a quick little personal example. Coming on the show and even doing my own YouTube channel years ago, I never thought that I would be involved in this sort of thing. And even though I am really excited about a lot of these subjects, I've always thought to myself, man, I don't think I would actually like to work in a factory building rockets or actually operating spacecraft. And then I started playing Kerbal Space Program, and was just like, oh, okay, I get a lot more of this stuff now. And I could totally see myself just having a wonderful, enjoyable career operating spacecraft. That would be amazing, and something that I never thought that I would have liked or enjoyed, because I'm just like, oh, it's too much math or whatever. But you never know. So try what you think that you don't like, because you never know what you will like.
Yeah, all right. I think that's our show this week. I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching. I'd also like to thank our ground support patrons for helping make this show happen. These are people who've contributed anywhere up to $2.49 for this specific episode. And once again, if you want to find out how you can help crowdfund the shows of tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. And of course, next week, I'm super excited. I will be conducting our interview with the Gateway Foundation. We've been talking about them for a little bit, or at least hinting about that for a little bit. It's going to be a lot of fun. This is a different way of looking at some space station stuff up in orbit, so that should be pretty cool. I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching. We'll see you next week.
It was scary for a minute.
Yep, love it.
He did it, Jared.
Good show. Thank you.
Good job, Jared.
Thanks, Pilot.
Jared, that was your first full episode top to bottom, yes?
No, good.
Hit the button.
Yes, it was.
There you go.
He's like, oh, wait.
Oh my God, I need a cigarette.
It's both easy and hard, the show. Like, it takes a couple times to get a feel of the flow, but once you get it, I think it's pretty okay. But
yeah, that was news was like an absolute blitz, and I've never had to operate that fast except for when dealing with puppies, and then the rest of the show was rather smooth. So
Yep.
Pretty cool.
News. It's funny. The show is in reverse order for complexity, right? So it's
Yes.
The hardest part of our entire show is the first 30 to 60 seconds. It's like I can't even begin to explain how technically complicated that part of the show is to execute correctly.
This is the complete opposite of spaceflight. Because spaceflight's hard everywhere.
Right. So first 60 seconds of the show, very complicated. The news segment, medium complicated, right? You got to pay attention and get the timing right and make sure the audio's. Then once you hit the interview, it's smooth sailing from there. I think, at least. So yeah, good job, Jared.
Yeah,
Great.
Thanks.
The news segment is intellectually intense for the technical director.
Yeah.
Intellectually intense?
Yeah.
Like, you got to pay attention.
You got to pay attention.
out.
You got to think. You have intense concentration for.
God, I got to listen to them talk.
Yeah.
Oh, it sucks.
You have no idea.
Yeah, well, right. No, and actually,
There's shiny buttons in front of me.
that is something that I've never.
I do, because I play Capcom most of the time.
That's something that I've never brought up, but I have noticed you've done from time to time, is you'll be listening to the conversation, and you'll realize that they're talking about something, and go, oh, I think there's an image of that online. You'll go find the image, download it into the system, and if you've got it in enough time, you'll bring it up on the screen. I don't know if the internet realizes that a lot of that's not pre-staged. Sometimes it is, like the images for today's show were pre-staged.
Yeah, sometimes we don't always think we're going to be talking about giraffes.
Sure, right? Yeah.
Right? Like,
Or unicorns.
Right.
Or unicorn.
Right.
Well, I think it should always be assumed that unicorns and
unicorns.
glitter will come up on the show at this point.
Have it on
Between
standby.
Lisa, Athena, and Jared, it's going to come up.
I was pulling the chairs over for the comment section, and I noticed that I think it's actually your chair. It might be my chair. Yeah. Covered in glitter still.
Which I vacuumed this morning, by the way.
Yeah.
I vacuumed the chair and I vacuumed the couch for the glitter, specifically today. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Really quickly, a couple of questions that we didn't get to during the interview that were asked, because I don't know if it's because I have too much knowledge with coffee that I was like, well, I mean, I already know the answer to that question.
Right.
And then I thought, well, I don't want to answer that question, but I also don't want to be like, so here's a question that I know the answer to. So I try to leave it out, but I don't want to sound insulting to anybody who asked the questions. There was a question about lighter roast having more caffeine than darker roast. And yeah, that's That's just caffeine is essentially just a chemical, right? So the longer you roast it, the more it breaks down, the less it exists, the less it presents. It's a natural thing that presents in the regular bean itself. And so yes, lighter roast then of course would have more caffeine than a darker roast, simply because of that.
Which is always funny to me. All to be like, I need a really dark cup. Like, okay, so you want the weakest coffee possible.
Right.
You want the least amount of caffeine.
I understand the concept.
But you won't realize it if I say it in a manly voice.
Dark
roast, espresso.
That makes that.
I like sludge.
Inherently, kind of it feels like it makes sense because of the darker roasting, because it has a much bolder flavor.
Right.
You would think it has more caffeine, but
nope.
Caffeine doesn't get inserted via the roasting process. It's just not something that happens.
So if you want the real punch to the face, do you just eat the raw bean?
I mean, you can. I wouldn't. It's like any other sort of refined thing to a certain extent, right? Like you wouldn't really want to. Also, I would not suggest the coffee that's made from, I forget what animal it is, but we're just going to go with.
The mountain cat.
Yep, the scat coffee or whatever they call it. I would not suggest that in any way, shape, or form. So the animal eats the cherry, is what that's called, and inside is the sort of seed of the cherry, which would be the coffee bean. And so these animals eat that. They excrement it out nearly whole, and then so it can be harvested in that way. And it's not the kind of, it tastes kind of how you think it would taste. Sort of like shit coffee, and I wouldn't suggest it all the way around.
The civet is what eats
the civet. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, Jake Quack.
Totally important.
I apologize, and I in order to kind of streamline my chat room, I sort of X'd out of all of the things of the extra questions that were asked that I didn't really get to. But yeah, and then you could always, I mean, if you really want to, as Wicked kind of suggested, how can you say something along the, he said something along the lines of like, how can you say this is the strongest coffee when you can just add a couple of caffeine pills and then it would basically do the same thing? Yes, effectively it would. If you want to do your French press with caffeinated water and the coffee, then yes, that's going to be stronger. But just much like there are different varieties of grapes that end up producing many varieties of wines, and then there's like different ways to harvest things. There's also there's these wines called ice wines where the grapes are harvested very specifically when they are frozen, and that also changes the flavor, and it changes the flavor enough. So there's a lot of different tweaking that you can do to all of your different coffees, starting with which kind of coffee bean in which region it was grown in will affect some of the flavor, even before you get to roasting. Like just where it is grown, because of the dirt, because of the water, because of the sun, because of all of the things, is going to inherently change the flavor naturally before you even get into how much you roast it, how much you grind it, and which particular process you use to make the juice, if you will. Espresso really is just a way to make coffee. It isn't necessarily there is an espresso grind, there is an espresso roast, but those are far and away completely different things than the actual process of making the espresso, putting it through, as Jetta says, turns out flavor is chemistry and art. Yeah, absolutely. It's just a different way of doing it. Drip coffee is one way, French press is another way. There's all these different kinds of ways to make these coffees. And again, that's even before you even add like milk or sugar or anything else to it. You know, and you want to talk about like lattes and cappuccinos and stuff, and I will really bore you to tears. But yeah, so if that, I don't even know where I started on that one. What certified Death Wishes coffee as world's strongest? I don't know. It's a really good question. Citizen 36788. I don't know offhand, although at the same time, I can't imagine that. I don't know if there's like a caffeine king that kind of goes around and tastes everything. And
Coffee czar.
Right? Like,
Caffeine king.
I think it's a little bit closer to being like, I don't know, some other fake label you can think of that normally goes on food.
Like all the roast beef shops that say, we're world famous.
Yeah, world famous thing. Like, yeah.
Home with a French dip.
Sure, I tell my friend he happens to be in China, that's world famous. Great. Like, one dude in China knows who I am.
So some people on YouTube were complaining during the interview, like, still coffee commercial. And I think they kind of missed the point, which is.
I apologize. I did want to like sort of lay the groundwork of like they know what they're talking about. Plus, now they're in space, which is so freaking awesome.
Right, and I think the point of a show like this is to understand that you need all of the things when you're going to space. So, coffee is going to be one of those creature comforts that a lot of, whether you're a coffee drinker or not, a lot of people are, and they're going to want something like that on their 7+ month journey to Mars and their multi-year stay on Mars. You know, people will want things like coffee. They're going to want things, most likely, like meat, things that you don't think of, right? Like, have you considered that you're going to have to be vegetarian? Yeah, right.
He wants the meats.
Right. I mean, when you go to space, you're going like on these long journeys. There's a not zero chance you're going to have to become vegetarian. There's a not zero chance that you're going to have to give up coffee. And the less things that you need to give up, the more creature comforts or standard things that you're used to living with here on Earth that you can have on that journey to Mars and have on your journeys in the solar system. I think the more people we can get to go, oh, this makes sense, this would be cool, this is something I want to do, and the bigger and more awesome the entire industry as a whole will actually become. So these things are, in fact, in my opinion, important.
Well, I feel like it would almost like go completely crazy if you were just all of a sudden thrown into that world that is completely different than what you're used to.
Right,
and you want to
right.
That little, as Ben has said, comforts of home.
Absolutely.
Right.
No to be able to just kind of ease the difference in. So
Absolutely.
That you're not just all of a sudden body shocked. I don't have any of the things that I thought I had.
Right.
She's
No
not
TV
Mike.
and no
She's not
beer.
Mike, so someone should repeat the general.
Wait.
Sorry.
The general idea was you're going to want creature comforts.
Yeah, creature comforts. Because it's a shock to the system. If you have to just give that stuff up, you're going to be...
I mean, just try it down here on
Johnny.
Earth for a hot minute, and look how quickly you get
Oh my
uncomfortable.
God, I can't. I'm so addicted to caffeine that when I don't have caffeine in the morning,
Well, it's
massive headaches.
Even somebody says in the chat room, like satin sheets, like, yeah, absolutely. Like, if those are the things that you like and those are your favorite things, just stop using all of your favorite things for like a week and look how quickly you become very uncomfortable.
The answer to the question of what would you take with you to the desert island? Just...
What, Mike? What? You mumbled a whole lot of things.
Is that where Princess Ben Credible came from? He didn't have coffee that day?
Yes, exactly.
No, he didn't have his satin sheets.
Oh,
Bye,
wow.
Jared.
Bye, Jared.
Thank you, Jared. Good job, Jared.
Just imagine you and your 6 favorite people and all of the creature comforts and things that they need and love on a daily basis in order to be able to be human. And then deprive all of them of all of that and stick them in a tuna can floating to Mars for 9 months.
So if you're not a coffee fan, then you can still take the concept of the show, which is companies sending coffee to space, working with NASA to try to figure out how to bring these creature comforts up. Insert your own creature comfort and go, okay, and this is another one of those, all right, how do I turn this into actions thing where you're like, all right, this is something, maybe it's not coffee, I'm interested in, X, Y, or Z. Maybe start working on that and figuring out how to get that in space, because space is going to need all of the things. Space plumbers, space janitors, space baristas, space hotels, all of it, right? If we want to actually live and work in space, we need all of the things. Yep. End rant.
Yep. I very stupidly did not bring in... Oh, I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
I'm wondering which of the Mars missions in the far future with BFR and BFS will be the smoking mission. Either that or just nicotine patches.
Right?
Yeah, smoking. So
Says the
smoking's going to be
smoker.
a hard one.
I was like, what?
just
Oh,
kidding.
that's the kind of smoking you mean.
Yeah, I was
Got
thinking
it.
about it, and that is a creature comfort, right? That's one of those things, except that very bad for the spacecraft and the mission as a whole.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't foresee that
I'm kidding.
happening.
That would never happen.
Yeah, there's not going to be a biodome system. Like, you want to go to Mars, you're going to have to give it up. You're going to have to move to like patches or some other way.
Yeah.
Nothing that's going to
Wasn't
involve
it Mark
fire.
Watney, too, who said that NASA has a really big problem with open flames? So.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think you're going to be able to bring not a flamethrower up to the International Space Station. Although, how cool would that be?
Dude.
I feel like that's the next ISS mission we need to test. Like, dangle your arm outside a station and just activate not a flamethrower.
That's funny.
See how it affects your trajectory. That's the experiment. That's the official.
Yeah. Oh man. But
Edibles work longer and better anyway.
That's funny.
TBD 31, smoking, step out of the ship and 50 feet from the door.
Obviously.
We'll just blast you out the airlock.
Yurjaman says, doesn't not a flamethrower need atmospheric oxygen, though? Well, I just add the oxygen into the mix.
Yeah.
All right, just bring it with you, kind of like rockets do. Would it, though? Because wouldn't there be possibly oxygen bubbles inside of the...
There be enough?
Of the fuel? I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much you would actually need. That's a good question. I think, dear NASA, we'd like to know what happens when you bring not a flamethrower on the space station and try to use it out. So on station it will work because you have oxygen inside.
They've had the fire experiments before, but those were contained. The Sapphire.
Yeah. I want to see what happens.
Come out all like in blue bubbles. Holy crap, that would probably look crazy.
Yeah.
Right? It would almost look like a ray gun, but it's bubbles of fire. Right?
I think you addressed that incorrectly, Ben. It's dear Uncle Elon. Please make hypergolic not a flamethrowers.
No, I don't want it to be hypergolic. I want the experiment to be not a flamethrower as it is in two configurations. One, exactly as it is right now. Is there enough oxygen in the chemical makeup to actually ignite the fire? That's one. And then not a flamethrower experiment 2 is you have two bubbles, whatever the fuel source is, but then also bring your own oxygen along and inject the two and shoot it out. What does that look like? Does it turn into big blue bubbles? Like, how cool would that be? Slash, does it go back because there's nothing like right? So does that become a very, very bad thing? So I want to see all of these things. Dear Uncle Elon or Uncle NASA. For science! I feel like when we do science, like science, there needs to be like lightning bolts that come down from the set and like all the lights flash for a second.
We'll add it in post. Like lens flare.
Oh God. J.J. Abrams. You know, everyone knows the story. So the original Star Trek reboots, J.J. Abrams had that. I know you knew the story because you were the one who brought it up. Would you want to actually, since you brought it up, you want to tell the story?
Oh, okay. So one of the things that Abrams identified with the original Star Trek movies was the lens flare. Gotta admit, totally agree. So he would sit just off axis on the lenses with a high-powered flashlight, just aimed right inside the mechanics of the lens to create the flare. And that's why it was so pervasive and so constant. Instead of just having the camera slide past the light source and we get that blip of lens flare, it was the joke of the movie.
And then
lens flare.
Because he didn't add it in post, it was added on the original. They didn't use it was digital,
in the capture.
But it was on capture, which meant that you can't get rid of it, not easily at least. So he was on in some interview saying, I immediately regretted that decision.
I'm just imagining him like on set with a flashlight and like someone inevitably is like, JJ, can you come over here and like direct and put the flashlight down?
Hang on! It wasn't JJ with the flashlight, but yeah.
Some of it was.
Was it really?
Some of it was.
He's directing with the flashlight on the side? Yeah.
And also the as Kirk is plummeting toward Vulcan scene, or toward the mining platform.
Spoilers!
Guys, if you haven't seen the 2009 reboot, I can't help you there. But the way they filmed it was one of those film tricks where Chris Pine was standing on a reflective surface reflecting the blue sky, and they had the camera aimed as if it was up at him falling through sky. But to have the camera bounce, JJ had the touch, and so he would rattle the camera just enough so that it looked like the camera was jostling with the air friction as it was falling with Chris Pine. So it was sometimes actually J.J. Abrams.
That's amazing. Can you imagine me, that director of photography, be like, no, I'll go hands off. JJ, you got this.
Yeah. That's some trust.
God, do you know what they shot with on that? Because like jostling the camera is not necessarily, like, can you see some of those rigs? Right? I mean, think about like an IMAX rig. What are you doing?
Are you lens flaring us?
I don't think that's going to work on this camera. Yeah, you're going to need a high-powered.
That'll work.
I guess.
So you
just a little bit right there.
Yeah, you need to be like. Yeah, you need a much higher power.
Yeah.
Light. This is the Star Trek edition.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yay, screen.
That's funny.
Let's see.
Sorry, I was up late the other night for reasons.
Yeah, I'm tired because I got up late because somebody didn't turn off an alarm.
So I got home, and as I got home, I was getting a phone call from the company because they needed some support on something. So, I'm talking on the car phone, kind of pull into the garage, and I'm sitting in the garage because as soon as I leave the car, I might hang up the phone call, and I'm doing some work. And so I'm sitting there. I'm there for a good 5 minutes. But I didn't realize that she had actually armed the house, the security system. So the garage door opened.
So I'm sleeping perfectly fine.
And the alarm has
And
a
I
2
hear,
minute, we have like a 2 minute, like, hey, you need to disarm.
And I'm like, boop, boop, boop. What the hell is that? Boop, boop, boop. It's not going off. Boop, boop, boop. That's not my alarm. Boop, boop, boop. Oh, God, I know what that is. And I was like, I should disarm. I should make sure that that is a legit thing and make sure I am not being robbed right now. Then I had to go through the process of, well, that's my car. There is a human in that car. I'm like, how much time do I have? Okay, good, I can disarm. And then I was like, hey, P.S., fucker, I'm awake now. And I closed the garage door, so he knew that I was the one
We have
who
an electric
disarmed the
car, so
house.
she didn't put my life at risk. Yeah.
I tried.
Yeah.
Just set a little fire under the Tesla.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
How many years has it been now?
Too many.
Yeah.
Too many.
I was so tired.
Apparently, it's turquoise. You can look that one up.
The stone? Or the
It
color?
actually turns out it's not turquoise. But that's a different story for a different time.
So I had actually gone to work the day prior and actually stayed the entire time, right?
Yeah.
So that was like, went to work in the morning and then I got home 4:30 something a.m. the next day. And then I'm like, okay, finally, get upstairs, go to bed, phone rings again. I'm like, for Pete's sake! So had to get up again, do some stuff. So I wasn't in bed until like 5:30, I think, that morning. It was not fun. Wow. You put me to bed and I had to wake back up.
Yeah, I caught
you
that.
probably figured that, yeah.
I know times.
Oh, wait, 5 a.m.? What is that in UTC?
Let's see, UTC -7.
With Pacific time?
Pacific.
Pacific Daylight Time. So like
Yeah.
Plus
Is it 7? It's 7, so it'd be noon.
Plus
noon.
8?
I think it's... Yeah, it'd be noon.
Plus
it'd be
7,
noon.
yeah.
It'd be noon, yeah.
There you go. Metrified.
1200 UTC.
Metrified!
Waking me up at 1200 UTC. What is the matter with you?
So Wicked is saying it's 8, but I did that in my head off of like the 1800 UTC, and I don't think that's right.
Yeah, I think
it's 7.
I think London is 8 hours ahead because when I would travel, my mom would have to call me 8 ahead. But I think Greenwich is 7. I think that's how it works.
Well, right. So Britain
summertime
bounces between 0 and +1.
Yeah.
Right. And the best part is we've had people in the chat room who are like, "I'm here. The thing is the time. It's the official time of the world." And we're like, "Yeah, except that you changed your clocks, and UTC doesn't do that. So no, you are not currently at 0000." So yeah,
no
was fun.
Zulu for you.
No Zulu for you. And so like it actually took like Wikipedia articles and like, no, really, if you change your clock, you're not on world standard time. So that is not atomic time. Isn't like daylight saving. Yeah, no.
Let me set my nuclear decay ahead.
Yeah, let me change back my decay by 1 hour.
Love it.
That's amazing. That's the shirt for the show.
Oh, here you go. Motham hates UTC, by the way. What's wrong with GMT?
Greenwich Mean Time got deprecated and replaced with UTC because Greenwich Mean Time did not originally account for leap seconds. And so GMT is not as accurate.
Meanwhile, Vax Hedrum says, do not get him started. Why do you think I chose this one, Vax? Come on now.
You've had your coffee. Don't he get UTC?
I'll end it there. Is that GMT is not as accurate and is actually off by, right now, it's off by 17 or 18 seconds. I don't remember.
Hashtag too late. Thank you, Dutta.
GMT is stupid and outdated. Yeah, exactly. So it's actually wrong by, it's 17 or 18, and it will be up to 19 seconds wrong before because our GPS satellites are actually based on, do not have leap seconds either. And so when you get GPS time, fun factoid, when you watch rocket launches from a certain company, and you look at the timestamps.
You thought I was boring, yes?
And you look at the timestamps on the screen, and they're off by 17 or 18 seconds or whatever it is because it's getting the time from the GPS constellation and not correcting for it. Same thing has to happen in your car. You have to actually correct for UTC, and then you'll get the appropriate time. All right, I'm done.
I'm kidding. I'm just giving you
I'm done.
Eastern Time, Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern Daylight Time?
It depends on whether the area you're in honors daylight saving time.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, what time zone are you in right now?
I believe I'm Mountain Standard Time. No. I think I am on Pacific Daylight Time. Are you guys stopped daylight, right? You guys are out of daylight right
Here's
now?
the point she's trying to make. Here's the point she's trying to make, Space Mike. Hey, when's the last time you changed your clock?
We don't change our clocks here, but when daylight savings happens, when daylight savings is not in effect, here in Arizona, we're Pacific Daylight Time, and then when daylight savings is in effect, we switch over to Mountain Standard Time.
So
our clocks
if you look at your clock right now, what does it say?
It is 12:50.
Right,
PM
and we have 12:50. Yep.
And then we will change our clocks.
And then he won't.
And he won't. And that's the other thing is there are pockets inside of each time zone that will and will not, even in the U.S., will and will not honor daylight saving time. So I will correct people who even
That's why I
guess
asked
on
him
the
what
show.
time zone he was in. That's specifically why I said that.
I'll even get like some NASA folk who will be like, okay, so we'll meet such and such Eastern Standard Time. And I will actually be like...
in the middle of June and be like, hi, you mean daylight time, right?
Right, and I will be like, actually, I think you mean this, unless you actually mean this, because that's actually viable here. Please clarify, because they could be off by an hour, and they're always like, oh, no, I meant daylight time.
Yep.
Daylight saving is stupid and should be abolished. End statement. It doesn't save energy. It doesn't do any things it promised it to do. It's the dumbest thing ever. Stop it.
Seconded.
Yeah. Yeah, good times.
Does actually says, just move everyone to coordinated universal time. And by the way, UTC is not universal time coordinated. It's actually coordinated universal time.
Because the French don't know how to form sentences.
It's actually a whole big thing. It's a whole big thing. But yeah. So many people think that work night shifts and crazy things when the sun comes up, it doesn't matter. Right, but humans are still generally...
circadian rhythm.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. To the sun.
Yeah.
And so I've actually put a great deal of thought into this, and I can't figure out how to realistically abolish time zones in general, because then it does actually mess with you in like really bad ways. Because then you wouldn't have any point of reference for like whether someone is in darkness or not, because it doesn't actually solve the darkness not darkness problem.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to deal. So time zones actually make sense. Abolish the 30-minute time zones. Those are stupid.
Yeah, Australia. What the hell's up with that?
I have never heard of this.
Yeah.
You would expect there to be how many time zones?
24.
24 time zones.
Yeah.
That's what makes sense.
Yeah.
There are not. There are way more than 24 time zones.
It's like 36 or 37 or something like that.
No, there should be 24 time zones equally spread out around the Earth. Right? And the time zones should never make squiggly lines. Straight lines down the Earth. 24 of them, that's how many there should be.
I get following state lines.
No.
I do get that for coordinating local.
No. If we're going to do time appropriately, you cut it evenly across the Earth, and we have the technology now where you can actually figure out where you're. Anyhow.
Funny tidbit of information. My mom lives in Arizona between Nevada and Utah. The strip of the 15 that goes through like Mesquite, Nevada, up into St. George, Utah. like her doctor's office is up in St. George. So when she has an appointment, she has to recognize what time zone the doctor's office is in. And then her brother lives just across the Nevada state line. So when they coordinate, Thanksgiving dinner, they have to coordinate what time zone that is. So she's in some sort of fluid flux between 3 different time zones. And then Arizona doesn't do daylight savings time, but Nevada does. Yeah. And it's stupid.
And it's one time zone on one side of her living room and another time zone on like the other side of the house, like, in the same room but in the kitchen. So you can see your phone like change.
Wow, that's
awesome. Like this side of the living room.
Which
that
goes
would
to
become problematic, though.
But it already exists.
It exists.
So you're not solving anything by doing this down state lines. You're not solving anything at all. So just
stupid.
accept it's not solved. So
For bureaucratic reasons.
Sure. So the first comment is Ben is a little crazy, which I feel like a little more. Destructor 1701 is my favorite comment. Remember when Ben said he was done talking about time zones?
Yeah.
And the third thing I want to point, actually, there was another comment in here that says, Jazz Throw, Ben should be able to understand daylight savings time as a host of Space Show. So first off, it's daylight saving time singular, not savings.
And he does, clearly. He knows it better than the rest of us. Crap.
Yeah, it's daylight saving time. You'll notice I've said that correctly every time I've brought it up. And I do understand daylight saving time, which is how I can say it's so stupid and we shouldn't do it. And Vax Headroom aptly said, I told you not to get him started. Vax is correct.
Tickle Stuff might have solved it with its bureau clock.
Where is that? Where is that?
Somewhere.
Oh.
Like 5th, 6th from the bottom.
There you go. There you go.
That's amazing.
Yeah, actually, this is a constant fight that I have. Well, I used to have at so Ann on YouTube says, I wish that things like launch schedules would stick to coordinated universal time all the time. I had this fight with certain people in certain different companies, actually, and because everyone wants to do it in their time zone because that's what they understand. They're like, oh, well, I can figure out my time zone off from like Eastern time to Pacific time. It's way easier than doing it from coordinated universal time. And then, I have to show them the metrics. I'm like, look, though, the viewership is mostly not from the U.S. It's 51+% from around the world. So how about we do it in New Zealand time instead? And like, well, I don't know that. I'm like, they don't know ours either. 0. The offset needs to be 0. Everyone can figure out the math from 0. It's hard to figure out the math from +8 and not even knowing if you're +8. What's the New Zealand offset? No one knows. Just do coordinated universal time. Okay, I promise I'm done.
Precisely why I brought it up.
So
by
Ben,
the way.
what's the difference between KU band and KA band?
Not much.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Frequency.
Everyone. Just kidding.
Frequency.
Thank you,
X-band,
Seki.
C-band.
Megahertz.
Seki says, by the way, New Zealand is UTC plus 12.
Cool, I didn't even get it right. I thought it was 8 for some reason. I didn't even get it right.
That's my favorite part about New Zealand. It's like, oh, you're like exactly half. That's amazing.
Hey, so speaking of New Zealand, what's the status on the Rocket Lab launch? Does anyone know? I know they were standing down for the whole window. Is that correct?
I mean, all I know is that there's one particular
so.
Rocket Lab person that's moving from New Zealand to the U.S.
Oh, yeah, that's true. We get that Rocket Lab person back.
That's cool.
Poor Ben. We just don't have. Hang on. We just don't have Ben problems, so we don't understand. It's so true. It's so. If you just need to understand me better.
Token says no new T0.
Yeah, no new T0. All right. Thanks, Space Mike. That's brilliant. I appreciate that.
That's so good.
Oh, Space Mike.
That's just what I imagine you doing, like after the show's over and everyone leaves, just you.
Personal rain cloud.
Like all of the lights in the studio are off except for the ones back here.
That
I'm just alone.
Ben crying into his cup of coffee.
Death Wish coffee.
I've never tried Death Wish coffee. I'm excited for them to have espresso. I do more espresso than I do.
I'm excited for their instant.
Jeff is
That
going to get a
sounds cool.
frickin' earful from me, poor thing. Like, no, really. When I said we were going to talk later, I really meant it. not only do I want Death Wish espresso, I want Death Wish to continue to pursue the instant, because there's a product where I work that I think is crap. It's simulated espresso, and so they look like little creamers, but they're black because they're espresso. And so you take that and you dump it into whatever drink that you have, and that's totally fine. Except what I want is, I would prefer to have the instant ones. So then if you want to just have the instant, you can literally grab it, go, and that's fine. You add as much water or as little water as you want. Or if you have a regular whatever latte, drip coffee, would be an additive. It'll dissolve in anything. You can have Death Wish matcha, like the whole thing. Like you can put it into anything. It would be awesome. That's really what I want. And so I'm like, hi, we need to talk.
So as a non-coffee drinker, when you said simulated espresso, I just pictured somebody handing you a little cup and then punching you in the face.
I mean, it's sort of like that. They do actually say on them, like, no more than 2 a day. So
yeah, those are stock shots, right? S-T-O-K?
Yeah, stoke, but yes.
Oh, stoke.
Stoke, because you're going to stoke the fire. Because, well, there's a line over the O. It's a long O.
Got it. Yeah, it's got one of those fancy accent things.
And yeah, I hate them. They're
Welcome
gross.
to the United States, everyone. It's got one of them fancy accent things.
The only person on the show that can pronounce the actual name for Comet 67P is saying little accent thing.
I know.
Jeez, Mike.
True. Right? Our accent guy.
So, Space Mike, I have you in studio doing Capcom next week. Are you okay to travel out here?
Definitely ask him on air.
However,
we can have this conversation off air if we need to.
Space Fest. Next week is also Space Fest, and Dwight Stephen Boniecki has invited one of us to come out because he wants to, give us.
When he says one of us, he means Mike. I mean,
he did reach out to me just because I'm closest. I mean, it's just a couple hours drive from where I am to where they're having.
Do you want to do it from there then?
That's what I was wondering. Like, should I head out to there, or do you still want me to come out to the studio?
I feel like Space
I'm fine
Fest
with either, but I think that would be cool.
Yeah, no, I feel like you can always come out to the studio. Space Fest is a one-off thing, so we should do Space Fest. I would always prefer to do the one-off weird things as opposed to the things that we can do anytime. So yeah, why don't you head out there? Are you okay Capcoming from out there? I mean, there'll be a little bit of weird delay, but I think we're still okay. Yes.
Didn't we do that before?
Yeah, we've done that before.
I feel like we've tried that before.
It's slightly awkward, but it works.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you use it, I don't mind doing that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Let's see. There was something else that I wanted to bring up, too. Oh, yeah. Is our guest confirmed for July 28th?
Can I see?
I don't want to say who it is.
I believe so, yes. I believe that's a confirmed guest. 11:30. Why?
I thought so.
I'm assuming that they're going to be...
July 28th. Is that one of yours?
I'm assuming that they'll be Skyping in for that one.
No. I think that's Doge.
Oh, that's a Lisa guest?
Yeah.
Well, I'll get you more information. We get a miniature human on this side of the Upside Down Friday or Saturday or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
So we'll be able to confirm that. I'll get a little better.
Friday.
I can say that the guest for 8-4 is very soft. That's not a hard guest.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
8-4, yeah.
That's a Lisa guest.
Yeah, that's definitely a Lisa guest. All right,
although once we're off air, we should tell Mike that story.
Oh, yeah, we should. We should tell that story on air. Oh, we probably can't.
That's what I just said.
Well, I meant after the.
Sure, after the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's all.
Cool.
Speaking in code, the internet loves it when we do that.
Yeah, I know.
So is the guest a plush toy?
Oh my God, that'd be amazing. We're bringing on sock puppets.
Neutrino plushies.
Wow. So good. Are we done?
Yeah, I think. Are we winding down? All right. So, Space
it's a
Mike,
grade puppet show.
Do you need anything from me for your thing next week? Or are you all right? You can ask me in email. Just email
yeah, I'll
me
let you know
something.
if I need anything. I should be all right, but I'll let you know. Although one other thing that I did need to go over is I am not going to be available for the 14th.
Okay, can you add yourself to the non-availability and rundown creator, or not in the cast and crew? Blah, blah, blah. Are you familiar with how to do that?
No. What option do I select to do that?
Okay, so hello everyone. You're going to watch some behind-the-scenes making of things and stuff. All right, so in Drive, go to the cast and crew schedule.
I'm there right now.
All right, on the bottom there are the tabs. You've got the cast availability dates.
Oh.
I can see you in there right now. So, drop down your name. And then, select the date. I think there's a date poppy-uppy thingy that occurs. Boop. There you go. That's it.
Date poppy-uppy thingy only happens on...
The date. On unavailable dates, right?
It doesn't poppy-uppy thingy for me. Oh, there it does. Never mind.
Yeah.
I just typed it in, so.
Sure, that you should be fine. So now, 7:14.
Now it shows me as red for 7:14.
Perfect. So MS2. So I'll bring in.
Let's see. We have Sarah, Lisa, and Ben. So maybe Athena or Jade, if either are available. Oh yeah, and Jared is commander for that show. So
I can do that if I have to.
MS2.
You make it sound like I've never done a news item before.
Heard a news story from Carrie Ann since like early Orbit 10?
I know that you don't
maybe?
like doing it, so I try not to make you do it.
I just said I could do it.
All right, let's see here.
I wouldn't offer myself up if you.
Well, I've got Jay. Sarah's
if you
on the show.
prefer other options, that's totally fine with me.
Lisa.
So you're looking at Jade or Athena.
I'm trying to. I've got.
Do you understand the most rare thing that Karen just offered to do there?
But
other than what?
I know, but I won't be able to work her media for that. So, no. Athena. Let's see here. Athena's doing. So I like to.
Tickle stuff. That's funny. Oh, she said it's totally fine.
Run!
It's fine.
No, Destructor 71. It's totally.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Really,
It's a trap.
I'm glad that the internet is picking that. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. We'll do. We haven't done.
It really is fine. I don't care.
I don't care. The other magic word.
Yeah. Sarah, Lisa.
No.
Let's do
First
Athena.
of all, seriously, I hate you all. You know exactly how I am. Wow. All right.
Athena, Lisa,
Cool.
Mike, Jared. Yeah, that keeps the cat Mike space Mike. Yeah, that works.
I got you, Karen.
Cool.
Protest too much. It really does not bother me.
All right.
It bothers me more than somebody would insinuate that it bothers me.
Galactic MD, I am going to a family thing and also a fun event.
It's an Illuminati meeting. It's the yearly sacrifice. Right.
Love it. Have fun, Mike.
Thank you. I just hope I'm not going to be the victim this time.
Fingers crossed, man.
If y'all don't hear from me again, I was sacrificed to Molech, so it's all good.
But it was your pleasure, though.
Yes.
Born to serve.
There was consent involved.
Exactly. That's funny.
Oh,
Thank
man.
you, Vax.
But,
All right.
let's see. After that, I think that's the only thing I need to bring up for now.
Cool.
All right. So now you so schedule makes sense. Add in any dates that you're not available. Blah blah blah. And then I'm using notes to figure out when we should bring you here. So just kind of always look at the notes area of the thing. Generally speaking, though, I'm going to bring you in for roundtables. I think, but you're not available for that one. So, boom, there you go. All right, cool. On that note, I think we'd be done, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. It was a lot of fun. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. And I'm excited for Gateway Foundation on next week's show. So we'll see you next week.
Oh, one more thing I wanted to say. Sarah.
Back from
Sarah.
black. All right.
Sarah.
Me?
Sarah.
What?
Your reports are getting much better, and you're getting a lot more comfortable on camera. You're doing a great job. Just wanted to say that.
What he was trying to say is you used to be terrible.
Yeah, that's how I took it.
You used to be terrible, and now you're only slightly less terrible.
Sweet.
That was my takeaway. So thanks, Mike.
Leaving horrific in the back
Never gain a compliment around Nigu Gassels again.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.